Chapter 2047. Chu Yang slept for a total of 8 hours. Now, it had already been 2 days since he entered the Purple Crystal Cave. Ning Tianya, who was already waiting at the southern entrance to the upper and lower 3 heavens, sighed. What's going on? Why isn't it opening yet? Are you trying to kill me with anxiety? I've already waited here for more than a day. I even found a place to have a drink. I'm just getting a sword fragment. Why is it taking so long? Supremacy Ning walked over in a conflicted manner at the entrance. He sighed, turned around and sat down for a while. How torturous. In the cave, Chu Yang finally woke up from his spring sleep. He felt full of energy and a feeling of expansion and contraction immediately came over. He couldn't help but be stunned. It's not finished absorbing? The sword spirit said speechlessly, the purple crystal core is almost finished. There's less than 10 feet left. Chu Yang was rather anxious. Why is it so slow? The sword spirit said helplessly, this is already very fast. Compared to the previous few people, you're already absorbing at a speed 10 times faster than theirs. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and used his inner vision. He saw that there were already 10 strands of primordial real silk in his dantan, shining brightly. And the 11th strand was in the process of forming. So many already. Chu Yang was rather pleased with himself. He didn't even have 1 strand at first, but in less than half a year, he already had 11 strands. This was really awesome. Sword Spirit, it looks like it's still going to take a long time. What should we do during this time? Asked Chu Yang. The Sword Spirit grinned. You're optimistic, but I'm not. I'm not in the mood to do anything. Chu Yang said disdainfully, you're so boring. Since the sword spirit wasn't cooperating, Chu Yang simply wandered around in the tribulation space. He even had the time to take a bath in the soul-quenching spring. Then he took out a jar of wine and a few side dishes from the tribulation space. Then he made a cup himself and poured wine into it. He actually raised the cup and toasted the sword spirit. Today, we must drink when there's wine. Who will decide what's right and wrong tomorrow? I raise my eyes and cross my sword. I have a clear conscience in life. Sword spirit, it's not easy for us to get along. Let me toast you. Clang. He downed the cup. The sword spirit looked at his lord sword master eating and drinking in high spirits, and felt a burst of powerlessness in his heart. In the face of such an open-minded sword master, what else could he say? In the blink of an eye, Chu Yang had downed a jar of wine. Then he took out another jar. He slapped open the mud seal. His body was currently experiencing a storm, so he couldn't use his cultivation. In other words, right now, he was drinking like an ordinary person. After downing a jar of wine, he was already a little tipsy. But Chu Yang still didn't stop. He continued to drink a few more glasses. He said, Sword Spirit, I'm thinking about the words that Shui Leihan asked Ning Tianya to pass on. The sword spirit said, Oh? What happened? Chu Yang said, Shui Leihan said that my love life is actually destined. Because I was too tough in my previous life, Wu Qianqian treated me with gentleness. Because I was too straightforward in my previous life, Tai Budian gave me wisdom. Because I was ruthless in my previous life, Mo Qingwu compensated me with love. Chu Yang was a little drunk. He said, At first, it seems to make some sense. But now that I think about it, Shui Leihan is just spouting nonsense. It's just an excuse to comfort me and help me untie the knot in my heart. The sword spirit frowned. Then what do you think? Chu Yang said, At the end of the day, it's my own business. In other words, my feelings for Qingwu can't be changed by heaven and earth. I'm sure of this. So Mo Qingwu. I must have her. Next, let's talk about Senior Sister Wu. Senior Sister Wu has always had feelings for me. I've always known about it and have always avoided it. But I'm a man. Sword Spirit, we'll be together for a long time. You clearly know that this stunning beauty has deep feelings for you. What kind of feeling is that? Later on, I misunderstood her again. I misunderstood that she really became the Empress of Iron Cloud. Later on, the misunderstanding was resolved, but she was already on the verge of death in order to save me. If I didn't care about her, or if I could save her but not save her, or if I saved her and then told her that I didn't accept her, do you think I would still be a man if I did that? The sword spirit was stunned. Then there's Tai Budian. At that time, I was unconscious. You were exhausted and in a deep sleep. I was poisoned by the lust dragon. Tai Budian didn't care about her noble status and sacrificed her daughter's innocence to save my life. Moreover, without my knowledge, she gave birth to a child for me. When I found out the truth, if I didn't want them and refused to admit it, what would I do? Then what kind of person would I be? But all of this went against the insistence of my heart from the beginning. So, whatever I did was wrong. Chu Yang drank a cup of wine. If I gave up, I was heartless. If I accepted, I was guilty. Whatever I did, I was beastly. Both were unfair to them. So now, I've finally thought it through. To think that Shui Leihan was so worried that he specially found someone to talk to resolve the knot in my heart. In fact, this is a very simple matter. The sword spirit asked, why? Simple? Chu Yang chuckled drunkenly. Since giving up is painful and accepting it is also painful, then I might as well accept it. What's the big deal? In short, I'm asking for trouble. I'm asking for it. If it were any other man, I guarantee that there wouldn't be so many problems. Suddenly, he roared, why are there so many problems? Chu Yang was drunk. The sword spirit frowned and thought to himself, when he said this, did he let it go? Or did he sink even deeper? This was really something that couldn't be said for sure. If he was a fickle man, there wouldn't be so many problems. But this man was a man who was so serious about relationships and had memories from his previous life. The sword spirit sighed. No one could help him with something like this. Chu Yang woke up, got drunk, and woke up again. He didn't know how much time had passed. The sword spirit was already dumbfounded from shock. The absorption of the purple crystal cores had been completed. At present, the purple crystal jade essence was almost at the bottom. However, the absorption speed of the heaven-crossing divine technique became faster and faster. There was no sign of it weakening. Just now, it had already surpassed the total of the previous 8 generations of Tribulation Sword Masters. And the speed was still increasing. And the time taken was only 1/10 of the time taken by the fastest of the previous 8 generations of Tribulation Sword Masters. Towards this result, the sword spirit could only exclaim in disbelief, this is sick to such an extent. This was no ordinary pervert. With a rustling sound, all the purple crystal jade essence turned into powder. Then they finally reached the innermost section, where the souls of the purple crystal were. The spiritual energy suddenly gathered into a superstorm, rushing in from all directions. With the sword spirit's current strength, he could no longer stand beside Chu Yang. He could only hurry back into the tribulation space. He was so shocked that he looked at the spiritual energy storm outside speechlessly. The sword spirit was already numb. He had long known that Chu Yang was the first generation of Tribulation Sword Master and would definitely be different from the previous generations. But even in his dreams, he had never imagined that the difference would be to such an extent. Another 5 days later, at the entrance of the passageway, Ning Tianya already had the urge to curse. He had already waited here for half a month. And there was still no news at all. What exactly was going on? Could there be something wrong with this guy? How could there be such a thing? He was just holding a broken sword. And it actually took 17 to 18 days? Chu Yang woke up. When he looked at his side, he was instantly shocked. It had already turned dark, and the original bright purple spirit chi aura was still present. There wasn't much left. Only the souls of the purple crystal, which were less than 3 feet long, were still shining and emitting spiritual energy. The circulation speed of the heaven overarching divine technique in his meridians was obviously 3 to 4 times faster than before. Chu Yang hurriedly opened up his inner vision. With one look, he couldn't help but be extremely shocked. Sword spirit, why are there so many? In his danon, there were already densely packed primordial real silk. Rough calculations, there should be 1 to 200 strands. Every strand was purple. Dazzling. Recalling that half a month ago, he only had 2 strands. This was practically reaching the heavens in a single bound. Chu Yang's eyes were shining. Sword Spirit, there are already 170, 150, 118 strands. The first 100 strands are forming. He was grinning from ear to ear. Previously, I had 2 strands and was already second-grade sword supremacy. Now that I have 200 strands, my cultivation should be at least at Ning Tianya's level, right? The sword spirit pursed his lips. In your dreams, these primordial real silk have nothing to do with your cultivation at all. Just as I said earlier, how much you absorb here can predict your final achievement. It's equivalent to a test. However, it's also equivalent to laying down the Great Tao Foundation for you. That's all. Wanting to use the primordial real silk at this level is tantamount to daydreaming. Chu Yang was stunned. In that case, my cultivation hasn't improved? The sword spirit sighed helplessly. You're already improving. Before he finished speaking, that last strand of soul of the purple crystal flashed and turned into the last strand of spiritual energy. It was swallowed by the layered heavens divine technique. It turned into the 200th strand of primordial real silk that was about to form in Chu Yang's danton. Then, the layered heavens divine technique actually continued to swallow before it stopped. It stopped moving. The sword spirit's eyeballs immediately popped out. It hadn't had enough. What did this mean? This meant that so many purple crystals were still not enough. It still couldn't reach Chu Yang's bottom line and truly test the highest achievement that Chu Yang could achieve in the end. The sword spirit was confused. He remembered clearly that when Xue Leihan had set up this great Tao test back then, he had once said, if the Tribulation Sword Master can absorb half of the soul of the purple crystal at this level to build his foundation, then this person's future achievements will definitely be above mine. After Xue Leihan had said that back then, he had even smiled. But such a person may not appear even once in a million years. To be able to be on par with me is already enough to be of great use. If he's really stronger than me, then wiping out the extraterrestrial demons really won't be a problem. Thinking of this, the sword spirit broke down even more. I'm going to die soon. Chapter 2048. The sword spirit remembered that Xue Leihan had set up so many souls of the purple crystal here for safety reasons. He had even said self-deprecatingly, if the Saint Lord builds the foundation, will it be used up? Recalling Xue Leihan's self-deprecating laughter back then, the sword spirit shuddered all over. How could the sword spirit not understand what he meant? Even if the Saint Lord builds the foundation, he wouldn't need so many souls of the purple crystal. Because this was the heavens of the lower realms, and he was only testing the foundation with the bodies of ordinary people. But Chu Yang was still not satisfied even after absorbing all the purple crystals, purple crystal cores, purple crystal jade essence and souls of the purple crystal here. In other words, he was still lacking a lot. The moment he thought of this, the sword spirit felt dizzy and disoriented. He hurried forward. Lord Sword Master, you must remember that it's best not to tell anyone about the amount of purple crystals you've absorbed here. Keep it strictly confidential. Chu Yang frowned. What's wrong? That will only lead to a fatal disaster for you. Sword Spirit took a deep breath and said, moreover, it will be a never-ending fatal disaster that won't stop until you're dead. Even the entire Chongtian continent will vanish into thin air because of you. Chu Yang was shocked. So serious? Even more serious than that. The sword spirit's expression was very serious, letting Chu Yang know that he was definitely not joking. Instead, he was describing a fact that was absolutely true. Chu Yang's heart quickly settled down. He said dispassionately, are you afraid that someone will be jealous of my ability? More than that. The sword spirit smiled bitterly. But this kind of thing really couldn't be explained clearly in such a short time. When there's time in the future, I'll explain it to you in detail. But you'd better not tell the emperor either. Not even Xue Leihan. Chu Yang found this interesting. The sword spirit was cultivated by Xue Leihan. And now he was showing signs of betrayal because of him? If you tell him, even the emperor may be implicated and die because of you, said the sword spirit worriedly. His words almost made Chu Yang's nose crooked from anger. I thought you were worried about me. You're really thinking too much. Of course I'm worried about you too, said the sword spirit somewhat cautiously. This kind of demeanor was something that had never appeared on him before. But Chu Yang didn't care. He didn't know that at this moment, the sword spirit heart was excitedly shouting, could it be that I'm following this Lord Sword Master? In the future, he would actually become an expert that was even more powerful than a sage. But I'm so blessed. Doesn't that mean I might be able to reach the same height as the Emperor in the future? Right at this moment, Chu Yang suddenly felt a surge of warm energy gushing out from the primordial real silk in his dantian and into his meridians. Wherever it passed, all the meridians immediately changed. First, it became tougher, and then it became purple and lustrous. Then, it slowly widened. Wherever the warm power went, the meridians there would clearly undergo such changes. In an instant, it had already circled around Chu Yang's entire body. Chu Yang's meridians also underwent a qualitative change at this moment. But this was not the end. Unexpectedly, a similar warm power emerged from his dantian, expanding his meridians once again. It seemed that there was a miscalculation the last time and the power was too small, so it deliberately made up for it this time. The sword spirit pursed his lips and smiled. He knew what was going on. Chu Yang had eaten that golden blood ginseng before he laid the foundation for the low-level martial way. It was only at this moment that all the effects were developed to the maximum. And this power had neglected this matter for the first time. As a result, it didn't use enough power. Immediately after, a tsunami-like power gushed out from the primordial real silk and entered Chu Yang's meridians. Everything before was in preparation for this moment. This was the real benefit of the Tribulation Sword Master after he obtained the fragment of the Tribulation Sword. This was also the power of the Tribulation Sword Master when he was at the heavenly layer. Chu Yang felt as if he had fallen into a pot of oil. His entire body was boiling. The heat, pressure, and expanding power at this moment almost made him moan out loud. But he also felt that under the speed at which he could completely feel his cultivation, it was increasing rapidly. After coming out of that 1,000-mile tunnel in the northwest, Chu Yang had just advanced to the elementary second-grade sword supremacy. But now, the moment this power appeared, his cultivation had already broken through the elementary level. It was advancing steadily toward the next level. It was like the gentle waves of the sea. It didn't seem very powerful, but one mustn't forget that behind these gentle waves, there was still an entire sea supporting it. Wherever it passed, it would definitely destroy everything. Chu Yang endured all the pain in his body and carefully felt the feeling of this upgrade. Compared to the previous improvements, this was completely different. The second-grade sword supremacy was reached in the blink of an eye. Then, the gentle waves didn't stop. They continued to surge forward at a constant speed, straight toward the high level and then the peak level. An hour later, Chu Yang's entire body shook violently. He let out a muffled groan and 2 streaks of blood hung from his nostrils. The bottleneck of the third-grade sword supremacy was completely destroyed by the waves in the most domineering way. The power rushed into the brand new meridians. First, it changed and then expanded. Then, it continued to rush through the elementary third grade, then the next level. When it reached the peak of the third-grade sword supremacy, this power finally stopped advancing. It wasn't that it was unable to continue, but it had to leave some time for Chu Yang to experience the third-grade sword supremacy. So this is the heaven-level divine technique. Chu Yang took a deep breath. Now, he finally realized and admitted that this set of techniques that he had always thought to be ordinary and had never been used was really the #1 technique in the heaven. No, it should be said that it was the #1 technique in the heaven-level imperial court. He became a third-grade sword supremacy just like that. Chu Yang felt a little unreal. He looked at his hands carefully and felt a little excited. But he didn't know that at the same time when he became a third-grade sword supremacy and the power slowly receded, all of a sudden, the entire heavenly layer underwent an unbelievable change. Under everyone's astonishment, the originally clear and boundless skies suddenly surged with wind and clouds. Such a phenomenon. It appeared in the upper three heavens, lower three heavens and upper three heavens at the same time. Boundless black clouds suddenly appeared from all directions. They were as tall and as thick as mountains. They swarmed and clustered together. They squeezed together and gathered in the sky at lightning speed, rushing toward the sky at the same time. All of this had happened without a sound or warning. But everyone who saw it clearly seemed to have heard the ancient war drums. The roar of the thunder god, the gathering dark clouds that covered the sky and covered the earth, it was clearly the troops of the demon gods invading and devouring the continent. They were fighting. They were fighting. Slowly, pieces of the clear sky were assimilated and turned into the color of ink. There seemed to be endless blood pouring and flowing inside, then condensing and turning black. Turning into the color of ink. Countless lives were struggling, trembling, howling, unwilling to be devoured. Everyone felt an oppressive pressure. They only felt that their souls were also trembling and wailing in despair. When the last piece of the clear sky was covered by the dark clouds, everyone had a feeling that they had completely lost hope. It's over. The whole world fell into darkness. They couldn't even see their own fingers. But everyone knew. The dark clouds in the sky didn't stop. The dark clouds were still gathering and pressing down. The feeling that the world was going to be destroyed weighed heavily on everyone's heart. What was going on? Was the continent going to be destroyed? But no one dared to move, because it was all dark and they couldn't see anything. No one knew what they would touch if they moved. Some people were so scared that they didn't dare to move. They couldn't move anymore. Their legs were trembling. The might of the heavens was endless. The endless darkness and deathly stillness lasted for a full quarter of an hour. Just when everyone was in despair and thought that the world would turn into darkness and the heavenly layer continent would no longer exist, suddenly, a ray of golden light appeared in the sky. The sudden appearance of this ray of golden light attracted the attention of everyone in the world. The golden light was very small, it was only a very thin ray. But now, there was only this ray of light in the whole world. There was no other color. In the eternal darkness, this little bit of light suddenly appeared. Countless people suddenly shed tears. Then, the golden light suddenly changed and turned into a sword in the next moment. It grew hundreds of millions of times in the wind and appeared in the world. Its entire body was shining with golden light. It was 10,000 feet long and 10,000 feet wide. It was glorious and mighty. At this moment, the sword used its own light to illuminate the entire heavenly layer continent. Then, the sword suddenly moved. It was as if an invisible giant had raised the sword with one hand and slashed down at the mountain-like dark clouds in the sky. The sword slashed out fiercely. Wherever it passed, there was a flash of lightning. It split the thick haze and revealed a ray of light. A gap was revealed in the dark clouds. Then, the sword continued to slash and stab without stopping. It slashed up and down, left and right, and slashed straight. It was as if a single person was facing the sky full of gods and demons, fighting alone. On the heavenly layer continent, countless people raised their heads to watch. It was silent like a dead zone. It was as if countless ordinary people were watching a hero fight. The golden sword flashed, and the dark clouds were broken into pieces. They slowly retreated from the center of the sky and went back to where they came from, disappearing without a trace. The sky regained its azure blue color once again. That sword stood in the sky, unparalleled in the world. The silent Chongtian continent suddenly burst into cheers that shook the heavens. Everyone was jumping for joy. The golden sword flashed in the sky and disappeared. At the same time, all the passageways in the heavenly layer continent. Chapter 2049. Purple light flickered and around the 100 holes, 20 words appeared. Each of them was vigorous and powerful. Accept my purple cloud tower and fulfill my wish back then. Always remember, exterminate the extraterrestrial demons. Chu Yang was stunned. Purple cloud tower? What was that? Suddenly, his heart shook violently and he thought of a possibility. This purple cloud tower couldn't be this pagoda mountain. For a moment, his mouth suddenly went dry. The words flickered as if they were urging him to hurry up. Chu Yang said quietly and sincerely, I Chu Yang, swear to the souls of thousands of predecessors that I will exterminate the extraterrestrial demons. With a wave of his hand, the holy crystal and divine crystal eagerly left the tribulation space and appeared above the disk. At once, purple light shone brightly. The next moment, with a whoosh, the divine crystal and holy crystal flew out at the same time. As if they had been away from home for tens of thousands of years, they cheered and jumped into their mother's arms. They flew onto the disk and took their places. Everything was done in an orderly manner. It was completely seamless. In an instant, the 100 holes above were all blocked up. With a flash, the holy crystal and divine crystal disappeared into the holes. Then, the disk slowly shrank and spun slowly. It spun to the side of Chu Yang's wrist and rubbed against it gently. Chu Yang's wrist was immediately cut open. The disk spun and suddenly revealed a sense of sadness and reluctance, as if it was silently bidding farewell to its original owner. Then, it moved closer to the blood on Chu Yang's wrist. Blood quickly dyed the edges of the disk red. Then, the disk suddenly flew up. The wound on Chu Yang's wrist was completely healed and became smooth again. The disk spun slowly and landed gently in Chu Yang's palm. Chu Yang said softly, "You don't have to worry. I will treat you well. Besides, I will also fulfill Lord Z's lifelong wish and exterminate the extraterrestrial demons. From now on, you are my partner." The disk jumped in Chu Yang's palm, as if it was agreeing and rejoicing. Then, it disappeared in Chu Yang's palm. The moment the disk disappeared, the cave wall in front of Chu Yang silently separated into two sides, revealing a passage with purple aura. At the entrance of the passage, there were two large words written in bold calligraphy: "Congratulations." Chu Yang's eyes widened. This was Xue Leihan's handwriting. Chu Yang finally understood. He completely understood. Back then, the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds was definitely related to Xue Leihan. Moreover, this relationship should not be a small matter. After the death of the purple firmament heavenly emperor, what he left behind was definitely not the only inheritance in the Northwest. There were two of them. Furthermore, this was an inheritance. Xue Leihan must have done it secretly. The reason why the Calamity Sword fragment had such a purple crystal to test the foundation of the Great Tao was because Xue Leihan was looking for a successor for the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds. If the other masters of the Calamity Sword passed the test in other places, they would come here immediately, in the end. This was the standard for the selection. The real selection. It was most likely that the other Calamity Sword masters were not qualified. It should be here that they were tested and found out that they couldn't go too far. Their foundation in the Great Tao was too weak. They couldn't bear the legacy of the heavenly emperor of purple clouds and couldn't meet Xue Leihan's requirements. On one hand, Xue Leihan was using that great power's Calamity Sword to find the Calamity Sword master. At the same time, he was also using this opportunity to find a successor for the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds. Calamity Sword's initial goal wasn't to reorganize the heavens, but to fight the heavenly demons. Xue Leihan had indeed given a lot of thought to this. Calamity Sword Master. There was only one. In other words, it was Chu Yang's turn. But the previous 8 didn't pass, and he was afraid that he wouldn't pass either. Therefore, he simply let Chu Yang lead the Calamity Sword through half of its life and experience all the hardships in the world. Then he reversed time. Let Chu Yang be reborn. Because Chu Yang, the 9th Calamity Sword Master, was already Xue Leihan's only hope. Otherwise, this pagoda mountain was right here. Even if others couldn't recognize such a treasure, with Xue Leihan's knowledge and cultivation he would know. How could he not feel it? Chu Yang thought of this and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. This was a scheme that Xue Leihan had painstakingly set up. It could definitely be considered a grand, huge, and painstaking plan. But he still decided that when his cultivation was high enough, he would definitely give Xue Leihan a good beating. This guy had really caused him to be in too much trouble. He had led a wandering life since he was young. His master's sect was destroyed and his master died. He would never know his own background. When he was at his lowest point, he arranged for his best lover. Then, he rejected her even though he clearly wanted to accept her. In the end, she died in his arms, causing him to regret it for the rest of his life. Then, he was schemed to death by his closest brother. In his previous life, it was simply a combination of all the bitter experiences of the past and present. That was why he became the Calamity Sword Master in this life. But with such an experience, if he didn't take revenge on Shui Leihan, Chu Yang felt that he wasn't fit to be a man. That bastard! As for the word, congratulations, that this huge bastard carved here, was it to congratulate him? Or was it to congratulate the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zi Hao, for finally finding his ideal successor? Chu Yang walked into this purple passage. Along the way, purple fog filled the air. The sword spirit was isolated outside. Floating and floating, he walked to the end. At the end, there was a huge seal. It was placed in front of him. It was just a seal, but it gave off a mighty and solemn feeling. Chu Yang picked it up gently and saw that the place where the seal was originally placed had 4 words printed on it: Eternal Purple Clouds. Then his body shook violently. This seal suddenly turned into a stream of light and penetrated into Chu Yang's body. Before the final battle, keep all the remaining resources of Purple Cloud's heavens into the Purple Cloud's pagoda. Not a drop of the extraterrestrial demon is allowed. The person who obtains the inheritance will be able to open it when his cultivation reaches a certain level. Hold my battle sword and charge into the Purple Clouds. Destroy all the extraterrestrial demons and let the Purple Clouds shine again. Chu Yang felt a little dizzy. The next moment, he suddenly felt that there was a small pagoda in his tribulation space. It was shining with purple light. He tried to enter this pagoda, but he couldn't. In a trance, the 10 holy crystals flew up and danced on this pagoda. The first level glowed faintly. That was where the divine crystals were. The round plate that had already entered his body flew out with a whoosh. It turned into 2 big doors and stopped quietly on top. When you can open this pagoda, it will naturally open. A voice rang out, but it only said 1 sentence. Chu Yang called out, Shui Leihan? Where are you? Come out. But the surroundings were silent. There was no Shui Leihan. Chu Yang immediately realized that this must have been said by Shui Leihan many tens of thousands of years ago. It was to remind the person who obtained this pagoda. The sword spirit had already returned to the tribulation space. At this moment, the sword spirit's heart only shock, respect, to this tribulation sword master that he followed. Chu Yang's future would be. The sword spirit didn't dare to think about it anymore. Suddenly, what's wrong with this person? Is really so big. He's really shameless. This person must have seen that the sky was dark just now, so he simply ran out to take advantage of her. It can't be. He can't see who's beautiful and who's ugly when it's dark. Who's he taking advantage of? This kind of person doesn't care about beauty or ugliness. As long as she's beautiful, he'll take advantage of her. Everyone beat this shameless person up, beat him to death. He's too disgusting. Chu Yang woke up from his daze. He immediately felt that his surroundings were in a mess. Following which, there were also some things flying towards his body. He couldn't help but be confused. What was this? He opened his eyes. He couldn't help but be shocked. In front of him, there was actually a large group of hundreds of people looking at him with strange expressions. There were men and women, old and young. Chu Yang exclaimed. He said, "Who are you people? How could there be so many people in this pagoda mountain, in this purple crystal cave?" Then he realized. The things that were flying towards him were actually some stones, tree branches, and a few eggs. What was going on? Chu Yang hurriedly dodged. What's going on? A few women in the group seemed to be very shy. As they shouted coquettishly, they covered their eyes with their hands, but secretly peeked through the gaps between their fingers. Pervert! I'm going to kill you to prevent you from offending public decency. A righteous-looking young man came out with his sword and stabbed towards Chu Yang. But Chu Yang clearly saw jealousy and depression in his eyes. Pervert! Kill him! Another person shouted. I've never seen such a shameless person in this world. The one who said this was a woman. Her face was cold and arrogant. Chu Yang scratched his head in confusion. The sword spirit reminded him in the tribulation space. The pagoda mountain has already entered the space. It's gone. You're standing on the main road now. Chu Yang suddenly realized. But why did they attack me? The sword spirit smiled mockingly. I don't know either. Chu Yang dodged a sword and a saber, caught 3 stones flying towards him and caught a few eggs. Then he suddenly realized that something was wrong. It seemed like his body was cold. Looking down, he couldn't help but exclaim, I'm not wearing any clothes. Of course. When Chu Yang was undergoing the Great Tao test in the Purple Crystal Cave, the violent spiritual energy had already torn all his clothes into shreds. Having been in the Purple Crystal Cave all this time, he had also gotten used to it. Now that he had suddenly taken in the entire Pagoda Mountain, he was still baffled. Appearing in broad daylight just like that, he wouldn't be treated as an outsider. That would be strange. At this moment, the great and upright Minister Chu was completely naked. He was fighting, dodging, and, on the side of the road, it was actually the dense forest where he had fought with Yizu. Chu Yang was really embarrassed in that instant. No wonder he felt empty down there. I'll dodge. Chu Yang jumped up and rushed out while covering his face. Cough. Chu Yang covered his face. This was the first time in 2 generations. With a whoosh, he disappeared, leaving behind a bunch of baffled people. Where's that person just now? He's gone. Chu Yang rushed into the forest anxiously. He immediately took out a set of black clothes and put them on. Only then did he let out a long sigh. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. The next moment, he remembered, this road has always been very remote. There shouldn't be so many people. What are so many people going to do? Chapter 2050. The heavenly passageway was finally opened. Ning Tianya sighed. He was also shocked by the changes in heaven and earth for a long time before he remembered Chu Yang's instructions. Yes, it would be good to go down and take a look. Swaying his body, he walked slowly toward the entrance of the passageway. It was around here, not far at all. Ning Tianya could overtake it with just a quick movement. When he reached the entrance of the passageway, he saw that there were already people from the Lan clan standing guard. Not far away, there was also a house of the Lan clan. By the looks of it, they had been standing guard here for a long time. Many people were coming out of the house and walking toward the entrance of the passageway. Old man, what are you looking at like a thief? Where are you going? Just as he turned the corner, someone suddenly shouted. Ning Tianya was stunned for a long time before he realized that this old man was referring to himself. He couldn't help but become angry. Do I really look so familiar? I want to go down, all of you get out of the way. Ning Tianya really didn't even have the interest to fight with this small fry in front of him. Go down? You want to go down? The burly man from the Lan clan laughed. You want to go down in the afternoon? You want to go down just because you want to? Who do you think you are? Are you Ning Tianya? Ning Tianya was both angry and amused at once. This guy is really impressive, guessing who I am with just one sentence. Unfortunately, it's sarcastic. Yes, how do you know that I'm Ning Tianya? Ning Tianya asked with a smile. That burly man was stunned for a moment. Then he burst into laughter and said in a strange tone, You're Ning Tianya? Pa. Old Ning, you don't recognize me? I'm Buluqing. The 7 or 8 burly men beside him laughed so hard that they were convulsing. Ning Tianya's face darkened. These few bastards, I simply can't tolerate them. I was half angry at Chu Yang, and now that I'm here, I'm half angry again. And it's these few wretched small fries. In a rage, he shouted, Get lost! An awe-inspiring aura was suddenly released. The next moment, as if they had seen a ghost, these 7 or 8 people suddenly went limp and couldn't move at all. Ning Tianya snorted coldly. Suddenly, he felt that there was really no need for the Lan clan to exist. But then, he felt his murderous intent because of these few small fries. It was really beneath his status. However, a feeling suddenly arose in his heart. If the Lan clan really doesn't know what's good for them in the lower 3 heavens, then I'll just kill them. He walked in leisurely, passing by 7 or 8 people and entering the passageway. At this moment, the Lan clan's troops were still several hundred feet away from this place. Seeing someone who didn't belong to the Lan clan enter the passageway, he couldn't help but feel surprised. But when they got closer, Ning Tianya had already disappeared without a trace. Ning Tianya sped along the passageway. In just a short while, he had already walked through half of the passageway. He was neither surprised nor happy. Everything was calm. At this moment he saw a black line flying towards him from the other side of the tunnel. Ning Tianya was taken aback. The people coming from the other side were very strong. Could it be that there was such an expert in these three heavens? While he was pondering, the person in front of him was getting closer and closer. It was only then that Ning Tianya discovered that it was a black-robed man. He was holding a young girl's waist. It seemed as if he was flying all the way. He arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye. Following which, the black-clothed man also exclaimed in surprise. When he noticed Ning Tianya, he actually stopped. From extreme speed to standing still with a person in tow, it was actually as natural as moving clouds and flowing water, extremely natural. This kind of control also made Ning Tianya exclaim in admiration. The person's long hair was loose and smooth, draped over his shoulders. But it gave off a strange feeling. And this person's appearance was also very strange. One of his eyebrows was pointing straight up towards the sky, while the other was pointing straight down. One of his eyes was big while the other was small. Moreover, the two ears seemed to be somewhat asymmetrical. Ning Tianya only gave him a glance. He just couldn't bear to look at him. This guy looked too miserable. He was about to brush past him. But this person actually reached out and stopped him. Ning Tianya raised his head in surprise. He saw that this person was looking at him. Suddenly, there was a look of shock on his face. Ning Tianya was even more puzzled. Could it be that he knows me? Then, he heard this person ask in a shocked voice, "Old man, am I handsome?" Ning Tianya felt a little dizzy at once. Am I handsome? With your looks, which part of you is even close to handsome? But Ning Tianya also knew that even though this person's strength was weaker than his, it was probably not much weaker. If they were to fight, it would really delay time. And this person didn't seem like a bad person? He smiled and said, "Handsome. You're simply too handsome. This old man has lived for so many years, but I've never seen a second person more handsome than you." "What? Old man, you have good taste." The black-clothed man laughed loudly. With the girl beside him in his arms, he walked past Ning Tianya. It was as if he suddenly stopped just to ask someone if he was handsome or not. Ning Tianya shook his head and continued to walk forward. Then, he heard a voice behind him. Sure enough, the aesthetic standards of the upper three heavens are different from the lower three heavens and the upper three heavens. Both the upper three heavens and the lower three heavens say that I'm ugly. Who would have thought that now that I'm in the upper three heavens, I immediately become a handsome man? This voice was actually somewhat complacent. The voice gradually faded away. He only heard the girl say, "Well, you're very handsome to begin with. That's right, huh?" Finally, it disappeared. Ning Tianya almost fell. He thought to himself that the heavenly passage had finally opened, and the first person to go up was actually a lunatic. And a very powerful one at that. Shaking his head, he flew all the way and disappeared into the passage. Everyone knew that the two people just now were, of course, Tan Tan and Xie Danfeng. Tan Tan was very happy now. He walked forward as if he was floating. He had just entered the passage when he was sure that the old man was stronger than him. There was no need for him to be afraid of him, but he was sure that he was very handsome. This was what made Tan Tan the happiest. Another group of people came in front of him. The group was neat and orderly, and they entered in a single file. It seemed very organized. It was the large group of people from the Lan clan who had set off for the lower three heavens. These people had been waiting here for more than half a year. After the Grand Duke went down, there was no news until now. The clan was extremely anxious. Especially now that the younger generation of the Lan clan was almost all dead, the clan was even more anxious. A few days ago, there was news of two dukes being killed. The clan gave a strict order. As soon as the passage opened, go down and find the Grand Duke immediately to see how he was doing now. Therefore, as soon as they saw the strange phenomenon in the sky, everyone immediately started to make preparations. After that, they immediately set off. They didn't expect that there would be someone earlier than them. An old man actually went into their clan's passage first. Everyone felt a little uncomfortable. Even if that old man was an expert, it was the same. Therefore, everyone decided to catch up with that old man and teach him a lesson. There were quite a few supreme martial artists in this group of people. Halfway through the passage, they saw a man in black coming toward them. He had a strange appearance and was incomparably vile. But what made everyone feel the most uncomfortable was this incomparably vile-looking guy was actually holding a peerless beauty. This made everyone feel a little unbalanced. Actually, Xie Danfeng's looks were 1 in 1,000. She was quite pretty, but she definitely couldn't be considered a peerless beauty. But now, Xie Danfeng was beside Tan Tan. With Tan Tan's looks as a contrast, how was this a peerless beauty? She was practically a fairy. Even fairies weren't this beautiful. What devastatingly beautiful! What shameful flowers obstructing the moon! All of them paled in comparison to Xie Danfeng, who was beside Tan Tan. At this stage, this group of experts didn't have any lustful thoughts. But now that they saw this standard case of a beautiful flower being inserted into cow dung, they still felt that it was a waste of natural resources. But this had nothing to do with them. Even if it was a pity, they could only pretend that they didn't see it. Someone couldn't help but curse. Immediately, someone stopped him. Our mission is to go down to the lower 3 heavens. See if there's any progress with the Grand Duke. If there's no progress, then capture the woman of the Tribulation Sword Master. This is a matter of life and death for our Lan clan. We can't complicate things. As for the passage, there will naturally be people guarding it. Our journey is more important. Seeing that they were about to pass by, everyone pretended that they didn't see anything and hurried on with their journey gloomily. Those 2 people were talking through telepathy. Logically speaking, others shouldn't be able to hear it. But Tan Tan's cultivation was several levels higher than theirs. He also had the secret technique of the Divine Clan, so he heard it clearly. He couldn't help but be startled. These people are from the Lan clan? They want to capture the woman of the Tribulation Sword Master? Isn't that Chu Yang's woman? So, you want to capture my sister-in-law? Thinking of this, how could he still hold it in? He immediately stood still. He opened his hands and blocked the passage. Hey, all of you stop. The experts of the Lan clan were startled. You should be laughing if we don't find trouble with you. Now you're actually finding trouble with us? Is there something wrong with your head? Holding back their anger, they asked, What's wrong? Tan Tan raised his head, raised his chin and asked, Do you think I'm handsome? The supreme martial artist leading the Lan clan felt dizzy. He said angrily, What does it have to do with me whether you're handsome or not? Get out of the way. Tan Tan said stubbornly, No, you tell me first, am I handsome or not? Immediately, 2 people laughed out loud. One of them said mockingly, What a bastard. He looks like dog shit, and he actually has the face to ask others if he's handsome or not. Instantly, there was a wave of laughter. Tan Tan's face darkened. He said angrily, You said I look like dog shit? Are you sure you're talking about me? That person said, I don't know if you look like dog shit, but I see a pile of dog shit in my eyes asking others if he's handsome or not. Before he finished speaking, Tan Tan roared furiously, How dare you call me dog shit? He reached out and grabbed. His arms suddenly extended infinitely. He grabbed that person's head and pulled him over. He slapped him on the face. Then he slapped him again. After slapping him more than 10 times, he asked, Am I handsome or not? He was using this as a pretext to make a fuss. Now, he was even more merciless. After more than 10 slaps, that person's head had turned into tofu pudding. He was already dead. How could he answer his question? But Tan Tan didn't let it go. He said furiously, You actually didn't answer my question. He grabbed another person and asked fiercely, Am I handsome or not? Looks like it's 5 chapters. Yes, the remaining 5 chapters will be added in the second half of January. After midnight, I'll post a chapter and go to sleep. I don't know if I can wake up tomorrow. So, I don't dare to say if there will be an update now. Tomorrow is New Year's Day. I wish everyone a happy New Year's Day. I will explain next month's update plan in the chapter. Let me ask you in advance, I want to rest. What do you think? Chapter 2051. Knowing that this old man in front of her was actually the #1 expert in the world, Ning Tianya, Tai Budian was also greatly shocked. Although Ning Tianya looked calm and composed on the surface, he was also extremely embarrassed on the inside. After all, this matter was a little too comical. She was here to help someone, but she was knocked down by a 1-year-old child instead. Not to mention Ning Tianya, even if the Saint Tian Ke were here, he would probably be too ashamed to show his face. But Tai Budian only used one sentence to resolve Ning Tianya's embarrassment. If there really is happiness in this world, then I have it now. Thank you, Senior Ning. Ning Tianya was the most embarrassed, but he was also moved by this sentence. Because Ning Tianya was invited by Chu Yang. As a woman who had been separated from her beloved for a long time, to be able to receive help from her beloved at the most difficult time was a great blessing to Tai Budian. Ning Tianya's arrival meant that nothing would go wrong. In that case, it also guaranteed Tai Butian's happiness in the future. Like a stabilizing force, Ning Tianya's arrival was absolutely uplifting. Tai Budian used such a tactful method to express her joy and satisfaction. Ning Tianya needed to think before he could understand. And it was during this time of thinking that all his embarrassment was blown away by the wind just like that. And to a certain extent, it also resolved some of the slight hostility in Ning Tianya's heart. After all, the empress in front of him was his disciple's love rival. But now, there was no empress in front of Ning Tianya, only an ordinary woman who felt extremely blissful because of a little concern from her beloved. I naturally won't let Chu Yang down by coming here today. Ning Tianya smiled and said, I will do my best to ensure the safety of your Majesty's mother. Although Ning Tianya was very confident, he still didn't make a promise. Tai Budian said seriously, if Senior Ning is confident, please, protect the safety of the people of the lower 3 heavens. This storm arose because of Chu Yang and me, but I don't want anyone in this world to suffer and suffer because of this matter. Ever since I ascended the throne, the world has been peaceful and peaceful. Currently, the world is at peace and the people are recuperating. The hardships of the war a few years ago have been slightly recovered in these few years. Now, the people are living in peace and happiness. But this kind of happiness didn't come easily. Very fragile. If a great battle were to break out at this time, or if the battle between the strong caused the sky to fall and the earth to shatter, it would definitely cast a shadow over the hearts of the people, and they might even be hurt. So, I'll have to trouble Senior Ning. Ning Tianya sighed and said, Of course. At this moment, to this empress, Ning Tianya actually felt some admiration for him. It was rare for him to experience such moments. But this time, it was because of Tai Butian's magnanimity. In the eyes of ordinary people, if someone knew the inside story, they would definitely think, your husband is the master of Calamity Sword, who soars above the sky. As long as you follow me, you will have endless glory, splendor, wealth, and power. Worldly imperial power and the power of life and death held by the gods in the sky could not be compared at all. After all, in the eyes of the strong, the common people of the world were just ants. However, Tai Butian was a woman. However, he was able to abide by his duty and seek happiness for the people of the world with his own strength. This responsibility was not something that could be easily thrown away. Ning Tianya had been in the lower 3 heavens for several days now. But everyone was full of praise for this emperor wherever he went. He was a wise man. It never stopped. This was the most honest evaluation from the people at the bottom of the world. Such an emperor was rare since ancient times. What's more, this emperor was a woman. Ning Tianya said softly, when this matter is over, your Majesty can accompany little brother Chu Yang to roam the world and laugh proudly at the heavens. Wouldn't that be great? Tai Butian's eyes were a little misty. She looked forward to it a little, but then she took a deep breath. She said softly, responsibility lies in the heart and shoulders. Everyone has their own responsibilities. She smiled faintly. In the eyes of the supreme martial artists or the so-called immortals and saints of the secular world, the common people of the world are only ants. They don't care about them at all. However, which saint or god in the world didn't evolve from the body of an ant? No matter what stage one is at, forgetting one's ant origin, even if one is the ruler of the heavens, I can also say that that is forgetting one's roots. And what right does a person who forgets one's roots have to talk about the great Tao? If immortals and saints can ignore the suffering of the world, then what's the use of immortals and saints? Chu Yang has Chu Yang's mission, and I also have my responsibilities. Tai Budin looked at the mountains and rivers outside the main hall and said slowly, my responsibilities are these mountains and rivers, and the people of this world. Even an ant has an ant's happiness. They also have the right to be happy. If others can't bring them happiness, then my responsibilities will always be on my shoulders. The emperor doesn't differentiate between men and women, only politics. I am the emperor. Being the emperor is a job, not an honor. As a woman, it can't be the best. But as an emperor, it's not something that can be given up easily. Just closing one's eyes can cause millions of people to suffer unspeakably. Just slacking off can cause millions of people to be in poverty. Tai Butian's eyes dimmed for a moment. She said, others may be a woman first and then have other identities, but I have to be an emperor first before I can talk about being a woman. Ning Tianya didn't say anything. Tai Butian's words were from the bottom of her heart. In front of people like Ning Tianya, she couldn't fake it. As long as a word didn't come from her heart, Ning Tianya would be able to sense it. But all the way until Tai Butian finished speaking, Ning Tianya only felt absolute sincerity. Supremacy Ning couldn't help but let out a long sigh in his heart. He really didn't know what kind of luck Chu Yang had, to actually have such an extraordinary woman fall in love with him. A woman like this made Ning Tianya speechless. Ning Tianya only rejoiced in his heart. If his disciple competed fairly with her, he might really lose. After a moment of silence, even Ning Tianya didn't know why he suddenly said, Chu Yang's woman is this old man's disciple, his only brother. Tai Butian didn't seem surprised. She just smiled. What do you mean, elder? Actually, Ning Tianya already wanted to slap himself when he said that. He was even more speechless now. Chu Yang already has someone he loves. I've known about it a long time ago, so I've always kept my feelings a secret. Tai Butian seemed to be explaining something. She laughed bitterly and said, I don't like to fight with others, nor do I like others to fight with me. If he hadn't been poisoned back then, he would never have known about my identity. After that, I found out that I was pregnant. Tai Butian pursed her lips and said, at that time, I even wanted to use the palace's secret prescription to abort this child. I didn't want to be a burden to him, nor did I want to give him a reason to accept me, but I'm still a woman after all, and I'm still selfish. Tai Butian said self-deprecatingly, firstly, I can't bear to have a child with a man I approve of. Secondly, as a mother, I can't bear to do that. Iron Cloud also needs an heir. Among the direct descendants of the Iron Cloud royal family, I'm the only one left. If I don't have an heir, it will definitely end here. Surely Elder doesn't think that I, Tai Butian, am the kind of woman who can have a child with any random man. Tai Butian smiled mockingly. Then she said seriously, so, even if I'm scolded for being shameless because of this, I have no regrets. No woman would kill her own flesh and blood just because someone else scolded her for being shameless. Even if I've caused harm to your disciple, I can only say sorry. Tai Butian laughed softly. Actually, your disciple is also one of the reasons why I didn't want to go to the upper three heavens to accompany Chu Yang. As women, we all understand each other. It's very difficult for me to face my guilt towards her. Especially when we're face to face. I can still comfort myself by lying to myself here, but Tai Butian said solemnly, somewhat dejectedly. Ning Tianya finally had nothing to say. Towards such a woman, Even though he was still dissatisfied and even hostile when he came down, his heart was full of admiration at this moment. As a woman, she was flawless. As an emperor, she was invincible and also the most qualified. As a human, she was still a success. Ning Tianya heaved a long sigh and said sincerely, "The emperor's name is Budin. No wonder he can really nourish the heavens." Tai Budin was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you for your compliment, elder." Ning Tianya stood up and said, "I want to go and see my wife. Your Majesty, please allow me." Tai Budin nodded and smiled. "Elder Ning, please go ahead. In my iron cloud, Elder Ning can go anywhere you want." Ning Tianya left with a smile, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. These few words kept echoing in Ning Tianya's heart. Which saint or deity didn't evolve from the body of an ant? No matter what stage you've reached, if you forget your insignificant origin, even if you're the ruler of the heavens, I can also say that you've forgotten your roots. And what right do people who have forgotten their roots have to talk about the great Tao? If becoming a deity or a saint means that one can ignore the suffering of the world, then what's the use of becoming a deity or a saint? In Ning Tianya's heart, these few words were like the rolling thunder of the evening drum and morning bell, echoing unceasingly. Every time, he seemed to have a new kind of understanding. When he thought of that child, that tree, that strange world, another layer of understanding appeared in Ning Tianya's heart. I, Ning Tianya, have been stuck at this bottleneck for more than 10,000 years. Now that I've accepted someone else's commission to come to the lower three heavens, I've instead obtained something that I've never even dreamed of before in this lower three heavens that I've never taken a proper look at before. In the past, I was only worried that there was no path in front of me. But now, everyone in the lower three heavens has actually pointed out a path for me. From having no path at all, it has suddenly become two paths, becoming a three-way junction. Ning Tianya shook his head and laughed. This is really unexpected. However, the secret on that little fellow is even bigger. My gains from coming to the lower three heavens this time are too great. Chapter 2052. No matter how thick-skinned one wouldn't treat this as glory either. After being beaten up, having one's spirit sealed and beaten up, to actually go around bragging about it as glory, Gu felt that he wasn't that crazy. Going by this analogy, the other two naturally wouldn't be so stupid either. However, he couldn't refute Chu Yang's words. Because this was indeed the truth. If he wasn't a top-notch expert, that person really wouldn't seal his spirit and enter. Back then, my big brother had once said that in this world, there were only 10 people who were qualified to fight with him. And Elder Gu was one of them. My big brother also only explained to me about the other two people whose names were on this token. May I know who the others are? Chu Yang smiled and said, Elder Gu is very familiar with the heroes of the world. You must know, right? Gu frowned. His squarish head swayed like an 8-pound hammer. He said, I really don't know who has fought with this crazy person before, Chu Yang sweated. Then, in Elder Gu's mind, who are the experts in this world? Gu raised his head, his eyes somewhat perplexed, as if he was thinking and rummaging through his memories. Mo Tianji's ears twitched. His gaze became serious. These were top-notch information that ordinary people couldn't know. Ever since I came out, I've been defeated 8 times. Gu said, and before my cultivation reached peak level, that's not counted. These words immediately shocked Chu Yang and the others. Before his cultivation reached peak level, that was not counted. This meant that after he reached peak level, he had actually been defeated by 8 people in succession. This matter made Chu Yang and the others break out in cold sweat. Were there so many experts in this world? The first time, I snatched a treasure and attracted someone. This person beat me up. But I had already sold that treasure. That beating wasn't light. But in the end, after that person found out about my mission, he didn't kill me. Instead, he gave me 1,000,000 purple crystals. Gu said. Chu Yang frowned. Who was that person? That person was called Wu Chenfeng. Gu thought hard. That was 30,000 years ago? Or more than 10,000 years ago? My memory is really unclear. Vianfeng. Supreme martial artist Qin Feng. Chu Yang's body shook. The second loss was to a beautiful woman called Lu Yun. She really likes her horse. At that time, they had agreed to deposit it. She didn't sell it, but the price she offered me was more than 10 times higher than what I offered to sell my horse. But in the end, I still couldn't help myself and took some blood essence to eat. I didn't expect that woman to actually be able to tell after she came back. She gave me a good beating. Gu Yigu grimaced. It was only after she beat me up that I found out that she was Wu Qinfeng's wife. Chu Yang was speechless. This Gu Yigu really knew how to stir up trouble. He was a character from the Morning Star. One of them beat him up. Emotianji suddenly interrupted. That's not right. Ancient as far as I know, whether it was 20,000 years ago or 30,000 years ago. Seniors Qin Feng and Lu Yun are no longer in this world. Gu Yigu said furiously, don't interrupt. How could I not know that they went up and came back? At that time, it was said that they were preparing to save someone. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji immediately understood. So when Wu Jueqing was rescued, it was Qin Feng and Lu Yun who had returned personally. I lost the third battle. It was a law enforcement officer. At that time I was poor. Our clan had already been cut off for a month, so I robbed a law enforcement officer headquarters. Then an old fellow came out of the law enforcement officers. That battle lasted for 5 days and I only lost by one move. Gu Yigu shook his head. He sighed. Sigh, I also lost by one move. The 10 of them had crooked mouths and slanted eyes. Robbing a law enforcement officer headquarters. Even if you were truly courting death, you wouldn't do it like that. To think that this fellow in front of them was actually still alive. This was really, is that law enforcement officer still alive now? Chu Yang asked anxiously. Gu Yigu gave him a sideways glance and snorted. He was very displeased with Chu Yang for interrupting his recollection. However, on account of Divine King Chu, he still replied reluctantly, at our level of cultivation, it's hard even for us to die even if we want to. Chu Yang coughed twice and exchanged a look with Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji's countenance was grim. If that person was still alive, he would probably be their most terrifying enemy. My fourth defeat. And it was by a bad old fellow among the law enforcement officers. Gu Yigu was very furious. I've suffered 3 defeats at the hands of the law enforcement officers. Each time, it was the humiliation of one move. Yet I fucking switched to 3 people. Fuck their grannies. Mo Tianji's face was as though he was in a deep sleep. His fingers couldn't help but twirl. 3 people. 3 people. Chu Yang felt the same way as well. At this moment, he wished he could curse at the same time as Gu Yigu. Fuck their grannies. So many. My first defeat was to your big brother. Gu Yigu gave Chu Yang a sideways glance resentfully. Actually, this 7th defeat couldn't be considered a defeat at all. I was basically just being beaten up from the start to the end. I didn't really fight at all. For the sake of Elder Gu's honesty, Chu Yang very politely spat out a mouthful of tea at him. Gu Yigu snorted. His body shook, and a wave of mist rose. The tea that had been spat on his face earlier evaporated completely. However, after I lost to your big brother, my appearance changed. The law enforcement officers couldn't find me anymore. Gu Yigu was actually rather proud of himself. It was only then that Chu Yang and the others understood. This fellow must have been hunted down by law enforcement experts after robbing the law enforcement headquarters. That was why he had suffered 3 consecutive defeats. Zi Sheqing slapped him from tall and thin to short and fat. She had actually helped him achieve his goal, making it so that the law enforcement officers couldn't find him anymore. One had to admit that the affairs of the world were really amazing. As for the defeat in the 7th match, I brought it upon myself. It can't be considered a defeat. If my primordial spirit wasn't restrained, that fellow might not have been my match. Gu Yigu grinned, his big white teeth gleaming. I heard that a number 1 expert had popped up. His name was Tianya or something, so I went to fight him. This was something that happened 7,000 years ago. Back then, I really didn't expect to lose either. Actually, I didn't lose either. I was just struck twice by his sword. Even Gu Duxing and Dong Wuxiang, who had always been straightforward, couldn't bear to listen to this. Ning Tianya struck you twice. Then, did you strike him? Gu Igu's face flushed red. He twisted his logic and said, he's much younger than me. He's considered a junior. I let him have his way. Apart from Mo Qingwu, who was nestled in Chu Yang's arms, the rest of the 11 people turned their heads at the same time and sprayed tea in unison. Cough cough. Elder Gu is really of noble character. Chu Yang praised him against his will. I always thought that I was thick-skinned. This old fellow's skin is much thicker than mine. Gu Igu's face and neck were red. My primordial spirit had already been sealed by your big brother back then. If I see Ning Tianya now, I'll definitely beat him up so badly that he has to look for his teeth all over the floor. Why, you don't believe me? We believe you. Chu Yang and the others nodded like chickens pecking at rice. They thought, what's the use of us believing you? Didn't you still lose anyway? In the 8th match, I didn't even have a chance to make a move. I was restrained just like that. That person was stronger than your big brother. Much stronger. A look of lingering fear appeared on Gu Igu's face. And it happened just half a year ago. Half a year ago, Chu Yang thought about it and asked, was that person very handsome and suave, looking just like a scholar? Gu Igu jumped to his feet at once, a look of astonishment on his face. How did you know? Chu Yang smiled. How could he not know? Because this defeat that Gu Igu had suffered should have been Xue Leihan's. It should have been right before he met Xue Leihan back then, which was also the time when Chu Yang asked Gu Igu, you didn't take in your horse the last time I came, given Xue Leihan's cultivation, if Gu Igu could react to it? That would be really strange instead. Cough. Chu Yang coughed. He might as well boast all the way. Of course I know. Because that person is also my big brother. Gu Igu was stunned. After a long while, he exclaimed, Lei Feng is also your big brother. Finally, his eyes widened as he cried out in grief and indignation, I have a feud with your family. Chu Yang burst into laughter. Haven't we turned enemies into friends now? Gu Igu heaved a long sigh. Chu Yang also heaved a sigh of relief. Ever since Zi Xiecheng left, she had left behind quite a number of mysteries for Chu Yang. But today, one of them was finally solved here. Moreover, Chu Yang was also really sure. At least 3 of the top 10 experts that Zi Xiecheng had mentioned back then were his enemies. Gu Igu had mentioned 8 of them. Out of that, excluding supreme martial artist Qin Feng and his wife, Ning Tianya, who hadn't fought with Zi Xiecheng and Xue Leihan, there were only 4 of them left. Out of the 10 people that Zi Xiecheng had mentioned, excluding Moon Breeze, there were still 1 left. Excluding Gu Igu, there were still 8 left. Excluding Qin Feng and Lu Yun, there were still 1 left. Assuming that all 3 of the law enforcement officers had fought with Zi Xiecheng, then there were still 3 people left out of the 10. Who were those 3 people? No one knew what that was. Chu Yang was rather troubled. He was assuming that all 3 of the law enforcement officers had fought with Zi Xiecheng. What if none of them had fought with Zi Xiecheng before? This wasn't something impossible. Wouldn't that mean that there was still 1 person whose whereabouts couldn't be found? And this person was a huge sore point for Chu Yang. What if all of them were law enforcement officers? Chu Yang thought about it so much that he felt dizzy. Beside him, Mo Tianji was deep in thought with his head lowered. Ao Shiyun's brows were tightly furrowed. Mo Lair's eyes were filled with worry. Xie Danqiong's expression was solemn. Gu Duxing's brows were tightly knitted together. They had all heard something unusual from this conversation. Dong Wuxiang's expression was calm and unperturbed. GMO grinned and didn't take it to heart. Luo Kadi looked at the sky from the corner of his eyes, not considering at all. Rui Budong's legs swung back and forth, even more relaxed. These few people definitely wouldn't use their brains. To Dong Wuxiang, they weren't afraid. A sovereign in front of him also used a saber strike. A second-grade supreme martial artist also used a saber strike. Even if Xue Leihan was right in front of him, as long as he was an enemy, he would use a saber strike. As for winning or losing, Second Master Dong had never considered it. Second Master Ji and Luo Kadi, on the other hand, thought, this isn't within the scope of our worries. Anyway, there are things to worry about. Whatever they say, we'll do it. As for Rui Badong, it was even simpler. At most, we'll just fight with our lives on the line. The few brothers had completely different mentalities. To be continued. Chapter 2053. Especially Dong Wuxiang and the other three, they were even more carefree and lazy. No wonder Mo Tianji often said that if I worry about these guys every day, sooner or later, I will age prematurely. The enemy can't torture me, but these bastards can also tire me to death. After resting for a while, the group bade farewell. Gu Igu didn't ask them to stay and sent them out. Have a safe journey. Gu Igu waved at the 11 of them. Don't worry, we will meet very soon. With a wave of Chu Yang's hand, the 11 of them disappeared from the snowy peak in the blink of an eye. Gu Igu scratched his head and muttered to himself, I'm not going to the place you guys are going to. How will we meet very soon? In a snowy land. The camps of the 8 superclans stood silently. Diwu Qingru stood at the entrance of the tent, looking at the snowflakes flying in the sky. No one knew what he was thinking. Xiao Jingyan and Shi Qishu had already been gone for 2 days, and had yet to return. Diwu Qingru wasn't worried about the 2 of them, but he was looking forward to one person, Chu Yang. If Chu Yang didn't come, the pressure from that side would be too little. There wouldn't be any resistance at all. So much time has already passed. It's such a good opportunity to stir up chaos in the world. As the Tribulation Sword Master, you can't possibly not seize it. But why is there still no movement? Diwu Qingru wondered. Then, his thoughts turned back to that mysterious person. Who exactly is making use of this matter? Why does it seem like he's really helping me? After standing there for a long time, Diwu Qingru didn't move at all. But he didn't know that just a moment ago, several thousand feet to the right of the camp, a dozen figures drifted over like a breeze and into the northwest. The Tribulation Sword Master that Diwu Qingru had been looking forward to was actually already here. Under Chu Yang's lead and Mo Tianji's planning, he was like a sharp arrow that pierced straight into the northwest snowy plains. Of course, they had noticed the camps of the 8 superclans. But now wasn't the time for them to show their prowess. Besides, the other party was very strong here. Mo Tianji didn't intend to fight them head-on at all. Mo Tianji's real plan, to not expose his identity, to make use of the Li clan's power and fight a war of attrition with the 8 superclans. The more power they depleted, the better. Now that things had come to this point, even Chu Yang couldn't guess what Mo Tianji was thinking. The snowflakes in the sky were thick and dense. Chu Yang realized that the places that he had cleared and the mountain ranges that he had overturned the last time he came here were already covered in silver. There was a place that was still fresh in Chu Yang's memory. He tried to turn over the layer of snow, and found that the layer of snow had increased by 70 to 80 feet. It could be seen that during this period of time, the heavens had not been idle. It had been snowing with all its might. The 11 of them were all dressed in white under Chu Yang's insistence. Mo Qingwu's red clothes had also become snow-white. The small wind fox was still sleeping in Mo Qingwu's pocket, but a small tail had grown out from its butt. Chu Yang was amazed. This little guy has eaten a lot of good things. Was he planning to sleep all the way to the peak? After resting 3 times, they had reached the depth of 2,000 miles. Although they were already far enough away from the Li clan's headquarters, Mo Tianji was still cautious. He ordered everyone to fly close to the ground. They must not leave any traces behind. While they were rushing forward, they suddenly heard a faint sound coming from the front. In this world of ice and snow, there were actually people fighting? Chu Yang, who was at the front, waved his hand. The 11 of them lay down neatly on the snow. The sound became more and more urgent, and it was moving towards them. It was the sound of weapons clashing. There were also people cursing furiously. They could faintly hear someone saying, "Who are you people? Li clan?" Then, there was a sinister laugh. The sound of the wind suddenly became louder. But everyone knew that this was not because the wind had become louder, but because the people fighting were getting closer and closer. The sound of the wind caused by their fighting was mixed with the power of heaven and earth, causing the wind force to increase by several times. Mo Tianji frowned. He thought for a while and exchanged a look with Chu Yang. Chu Yang nodded slowly. The two of them understood that since there were people fighting here, it must be people from the 8 superclans and the Li clan. At most, there would be law enforcement officers. No matter which side, to them, they were all enemies, but also opportunities. Chu Yang turned his head. Mo Tianji stretched out his hands and pointed to both sides. Chu Yang, Gu Duxing, Mo Qingwu, GMO and Luo Kadi silently went to the left side. Then the white snow rolled and buried the 5 of them under the snow. Mo Tianji, Dong Wushang, Ao Xian, Xie Danqiong, Rui Badong and Mo Lei stayed on the right side. A path of 400 to 500 feet was cleared. With a whoosh, a white figure rushed over as fast as lightning. Beside him, there was another white figure, but he was already drenched in blood. Behind them, left and right, there were 2 figures flying in the air. As one of them flew down, he laughed sinisterly. Xiao Jingyan, since you've come to us, do you still want to leave? Stay and have some fun. The thin and long figure in front was Xiao Jingyan of the Xiao clan. Upon hearing that, he said angrily, "You are indeed from the Li clan." The white figure let out a long laugh and said sternly, "Nonsense." He attacked from the air. Xiao Jingyan dodged and Shi Qishu beside him rushed over. The 2 of them whistled and rushed back with all their might instead of fighting. The big hand in midair made a crack in the air with a whoosh. It seemed to make a sound like glass breaking. The crack extended in all directions and a black hole appeared. But Xiao Jingyan and Shi Qishu had already rushed out. 2 8th-grade supreme martial artists joined forces. Although the other party was 4 8th-grade supreme martial artists and they couldn't beat them, escaping was not a problem. But how could Chu Yang let them escape? If they left, where would he go to watch the show? With a thought, the sword spirit rushed out of the tribulation space with a whoosh, invisibly blocking the way of the 2 of them breaking out. The 2 of them had just rushed out 200 feet when a murderous aura suddenly rose in front of them. The 2 of them were shocked. Before they could dodge, the murderous aura had already hit them in the face, as if there was a pair of hands in the dark. The left hand pressed on Xiao Jingyan's forehead and the right hand on Shi Qishu's shoulder. The 2 of them screamed and staggered. At the same time they shouted, "Ghost!" For a moment, they were scared out of their wits. The sword spirit attacked with an illusory body. Although the enemy couldn't hurt him, he couldn't hurt them either. But it was enough to obstruct them. With this obstruction, the 4 white-robed men behind them had already flown out. They stood in front of Xiao Jingyan and Shi Qishu and sneered. "Xiao Jingyan, Shi Qishu, you can't leave." Shi Qishu's eyes were still filled with fear as he stared ahead. His lips trembled and turned pale. There's a ghost? What ghost? The leading white-robed masked man waved his hand. "Kill them." The 4 of them attacked together. Xiao Jingyan and Shi Qishu were uneasy and at once fell into a disadvantageous position. Just now, the 2 of them clearly felt a cold hand touching their foreheads and could clearly feel the power on it. Now that they opened their eyes and saw nothing, they panicked at once. And in the midst of a fierce battle, they couldn't concentrate. Instantly, they fell into a state of being beaten up. But the 4 white-robed men were also anxious and cursed wildly. They didn't really want to kill Xiao Jingyan and Shi Qishu in the first place. They just kept exerting pressure on them. But now, these 2 bastards actually didn't run away. And they were in a daze. Weren't they fucking courting death? It doesn't matter if you want to die, but don't ruin our plan. On the other side, Chu Yang and Mo Tianji were communicating telepathically. Plan. This was Chu Yang. Should we leave these 2 here? Mo Tianji said, "These 2, one is called Xiao Jingyan and the other is called Shi Qishu. Both are important figures in big clans. If we leave them here, it will be helpful for our future plans." Chu Yang pondered. "But I don't understand. But one thing is for sure. These 4 are definitely not from the Li clan. I've basically seen everyone from the Li clan, especially the experts." Mo Tianji was silent for a while, as if shocked by Chu Yang's words. Then he said, "Not from the Li clan? But pretending to be from the Li clan to stop us?" "Yes." Chu Yang frowned. Mo Tianji said, "Then what is their purpose? Or rather, what are their plans? Could it be on Diwu Qingrou's side?" Chu Yang was puzzled. "That's the problem. There is no such expert on Diwu Qingrou's side." Mo Tianji frowned at once. As soon as he heard about this situation, he immediately felt that something was wrong. Mo Tianji thought for a while and said slowly, "Diwu Qingrou's strength. Whether there is such an expert, can you be sure?" Chu Yang was startled. "I can't be sure." Mo Tianji's eyes flickered. He said slowly, "Although I can't be sure, I know that Diwu Qingrou's shadow is definitely here. So I've decided that this chance encounter will be my first battle with Diwu Qingrou." The first battle. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. "So soon, so early it's coming?" Chu Yang looked at the battle circle and said, "Tianji, can you tell? These 4 people didn't use any killing moves at all. Although their murderous intent is very strong, but I have a feeling that they don't want these 2 people's lives." Mo Tianji said, "Yes. So, the possibility of Diwu Qingrou using this matter as a pretext is the highest." No matter what Chu Yang said, Mo Tianji was now set on Diwu Qingrou. "Apply pressure?" Chu Yang muttered to himself. Mo Tianji's voice suddenly became urgent. "No matter what, we have to mess up this matter once. These 4 people don't want these 2 people to die, this is for sure, but we can't let them do as they wish." Chu Yang said, "What do you mean? Let's interfere and keep these 2 people here?" Mo Tianji's eyes flashed and he said decisively, "One dead. One dead. That's the best situation." Chu Yang's eyes lit up. Brilliant plan. The battle here was close to reaching its climax. Xiao Jingyan and Shi Qishu quickly adjusted their moods. Although they were still suspicious, they didn't dare to be distracted anymore. But the disadvantage had already been set. The 2 of them used all their skills but couldn't turn the situation around. At this moment, Mo Tianji, who was at the side, transmitted his voice, "Move." Chapter 2054. Don't think that. You don't have the right to think that. Lan Mofeng immediately said, "You can only see it after they go over, but can't you see it before they go over? Why must it be after they go over?" The person on the other side said somewhat unjustly, "It's like this. Before they went over, a few people also went over first and raised a large amount of snow and dust. Similarly, it's hard to see clearly. And we definitely don't dare to go close. Someone went over before?" Diwu Qingrou frowned and went over to ask, "How many people do you think there are?" The person on the other side hesitated for a moment and said, "Estimated, at least 150 to 200 people." "The direction is in our direction?" asked Diwu Qingrou. "Yes, in a straight line. Their target is where our alliance headquarters is." Okay, that's all for you." Diwu Qingrou motioned for Lan Mofeng to cut off. Diwu Qingrou took a deep breath and slowly stood up. His brows were tightly knitted and his eyes were full of thoughts. Below, the dozen or so people all looked at him somewhat nervously. The decision now was really a battle of victory and defeat. It was very likely that the outcome of this contact battle would be decided by Diwu Qingrou's judgment this time. No one dared to say anything to disrupt Diwu Qingrou's train of thought. They just waited quietly. As a supreme martial artist, they still had this bit of composure. In the tent, it was instantly so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Only the sound of Diwu Qingrou pacing back and forth slowly could be heard. The number of people dispatched this time is definitely more than the previous few operations. Otherwise, they wouldn't have confused the line of sight in advance and obliterated the traces afterwards. The last few times the other side moved out, the biggest one was when they sent out a total of 180 experts. 100 to fight, 40 to ambush, and 40 to guard. And there will always be people who will set up ambushes and loot the formation. Therefore, the other party is a cautious person by nature. Diwu Qingrou was muttering to himself. As he paced, he frowned and analyzed softly. "Commander-in-Chief, Will the other party suddenly turn out in full force to fight us? Beside him, the expert from the Shi clan who rushed over at night suddenly interjected. He had only been here for less than 2 days. He wasn't familiar with Diwu Qingrou's power, yet he rashly raised his own guess. Bastard! Xiao Jingyan yelled angrily in a low voice. Are you a pig? Didn't the commander-in-chief say that the other party was a cautious person? Shut up. Don't interrupt the commander-in-chief's train of thought. That person was stunned and looked at Xiao Jingyan in surprise, only to find that all the 8th-grade supreme martial artists in the room were glaring at him angrily. His interruption actually caused everyone to be angry? Fuck, it can't be right. This gigolo Diwu Qingru had actually established such supreme authority in such a short time? However, it was difficult to provoke public anger. The Shi family expert obediently lowered his head and didn't say anything. If I offend all the big shots here, then I'll have to wait to make things difficult for them. This is a matter of life and death. Diwu Qingru's eyes flashed as he said in a warm voice, since the other party is so cautious, then why don't you take action? Wasn't choosing to fight when they were at a disadvantage the same as courting death? You even lost the chance to struggle at death's door? Furthermore, if we were to launch a long-distance attack, we would even be able to take down the Li clan's headquarters in one fell swoop. But right now, we can't even find such an opportunity. Even the most ordinary military advisor wouldn't do such a thing. Elder Shi, you're worrying too much. That Shi family expert blushed and murmured, yes. At this moment, feeling the knife-like gazes coming from all directions, he instantly felt that his back was sweating. Diwu Qingru continued his analysis. Since there are definitely more than before, then I'm afraid it's not 150 to 200 people, but between 200 to 300 people. With this number, the Li clan's headquarters will be in danger. Yes. That was what everyone was thinking in their hearts. With the Li clan's strength, no one would be surprised if they were to mobilize 50,000 martial artists now. But these 50,000 people were all martial artists. But those who could fight against the experts of the 8 super clans alliance army here, the Li clan definitely didn't have more than 1,200 people. Furthermore, under the constant pressure, the Li clan had depleted at least close to 300 people in the battle. This was referring to the dead. And the injured were about the same. Under such circumstances, if they mobilized more than 400 experts, the Li clan's headquarters would be extremely empty. It's a little too many people, so the other party must have a target this time. Diwu Qingru said softly, and such a target can't be a small number. It's very likely that they want to remove one of our points. Firstly, one of our points, no matter which clan we belong to, our individual strength is now slightly weaker than theirs. It's completely possible. Secondly, if they come and go like the wind and retreat after one strike, then it's another powerful deterrent. Bring over the map of the distribution of our forces. Diwu Qingru instructed calmly. Lan Mofeng responded and immediately took down a paper bag hanging on the wall. With a casual suction, a platform made of earth appeared in the middle of the tent. With a swoosh, the map unfolded on top of it. Diwu Qingru waved and said, "Come and take a look." Everyone gathered around at the same time. Right now, our distribution is Phoenix Palace. The 8 super clans each occupy one side, and the law enforcement officers occupy another. At the same time, all the exits have been cut off. The Lan clan is in the center and guards the army. The law enforcement officers are the strongest and are at the forefront. Right now, there are 2 clans that are more vulnerable to attack. It's these 2 clans. Diwu Qingru pointed lightly with his finger. Everyone looked over at the same time. The expressions of Zhuge Yinfeng and Yuding of the Zhuge clan changed at the same time. The Zhuge clan was in the northwest corner, and the Zhuge clan was in the northeast corner. Both were the 2 sharp corners that protruded out of the battle formation. They were originally the best choice for defense and also the 2 sharp edges that could attack at any time. But now, without a doubt, if the other party wanted to take the initiative to attack, the most advantageous choice would also be their 2 clans. Commander-in-Chief Diwu. Zhuge Yinfeng and Yuding called out at the same time. Zhuge Yinfeng was the big boss of the Zhuge clan, while Diwu Qingrou was only from a subsidiary clan and not the heir. All along, Diwu Qingrou was just a servant in Zhuge Yinfeng's eyes. And in the Northwest War, they didn't use Zhuge Yinfeng, who was a ready-made intelligent clan, but used Diwu Qingrou. Being suppressed by a servant, there was no need to mention how Zhuge Yinfeng felt in his heart. Although Diwu Qingrou had proven his strength in every battle after that, making Zhuge Yinfeng feel ashamed of his inferiority and changing his attitude, that sense of superiority and vigilance made him unable to put down his pride at all. But this time, it was different. Zhuge Yinfeng couldn't care about his old face anymore. Diwu Qingrou, however, was thinking. Although the other party's operation this time was secretive and strange, it still allowed his people to grasp their whereabouts. In other words, the other party deliberately let him know. Otherwise, with the Li clan's familiarity with the terrain, the Li clan could totally choose another path. Moreover, the other party first concealed their numbers and then used snow dust to erase their tracks. This clearly meant that they knew that there were experts from the Allied forces paying attention to that area. Since they knew, they went from there. This is clearly a signal for me. Diwu Qingrou almost held his breath as he pondered. In other words, the other party wants to get something. But after this matter is over, it will be beneficial to my own position or other things. But what can I get? My position is already stable. What I need now is the foundation of the Diwu clan and the greater confidence of others in me. And these come from strength. As for strength, Diwu Qingrou calculated in his heart. Then, which of the two clans should sacrifice some benefits? If something happens to the clan, and there are losses. If I protect the Zhuge clan, it means that I am not only an intelligent person, but also a person who cares about old friendships. But if the Zhuge clan sacrifices its benefits, it will be most beneficial for the Diwu clan to establish itself in the future. But if something happens to the Zhuge clan and there are huge losses, then there will definitely be people who say that I am cold-hearted. No matter what, the Zhuge clan has protected the Diwu clan for 10,000 years. I have to consider this reputation issue. Caring about old friendships is the biggest guarantee to win people's hearts. And everyone in the martial world cares about nothing more than life and death and the continuation of the fireworks. Having a master who cares about old friendships is better than having a master who is cold-hearted by nature. Diwu Qingrou quickly made a decision. I'm sure that the enemy's target will definitely be these two clans. And these two positions are the horns of the Allied forces. They cannot be lost. So, we must increase the troops and protect them. But the army cannot be left empty either. So, the Lan clan and the law enforcement officers will guard the army nearby to ensure that the camp will not be attacked. And the remaining 5 clans will have to be distributed. Diwu Qingrou ordered continuously, Elder Yi, you lead the experts of the Yi clan to the Zhuge clan's camp immediately and raise the flag. Use the Yi clan's name to deter the enemy, and be ready to attack with the Zhuge clan at any time. Yi Xiaoyao immediately stood up to receive the order. Zhuge Yinfeng's eyes were filled with excitement. Diwu Qingrou really didn't take the opportunity to take revenge on the Zhuge clan. On the contrary, he even sent the Yi clan, which was the most powerful, to the Zhuge clan to guard. Behind Diwu Qingrou, Lan Mofeng's eyes flashed. He felt a kind of comfort in his heart, but also a kind of indignation. Since he still cares about old friendships with the Zhuge clan and the overall situation, then in the future, he won't be any better to me. His indignation was, you still care about old friendships at a time like this, don't you know how to think for yourself? Elder Xiao, you and your experts of the Xiao clan will join the Yi clan's camp. Similarly, all of you must be prepared to attack. Yes. Xiao Jingyan agreed solemnly. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for it. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 2055. GMO agreed repeatedly. He patted his chest and made a series of promises, then left confidently. Given GMO's current cultivation, even if Li Xiongtu was in a coma, and Jian would definitely not be GMO's match. Everyone took their seats one by one. They were Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, Tan Tan, Luo Kadi, Gu Duxing, Ray Badong, Mo Qingwu, Chu Lu, Mo Lei, Dong Wushang, Wu Jueqing, Gu Igu, Duke Yu, and 2 other elders from the 3 Stars Divine Clan. Other than Ao Shiyun and Xie Danqiong who were outside making arrangements, and GMO who went to fight the enemy, all the key figures were gathered here. Why did you take so long? Why didn't you come a little later? Wouldn't it have been easier for you to come after we started fighting with the allied forces of the clans? Chu Yang frowned and questioned Tan Tan. The moment he opened his mouth, his tone was one of condemnation. It even seemed a little condescending and vicious. The elder from the 3 Stars Divine Clan was very displeased with Chu Yang's attitude. He was furious and shouted, "How can you speak like that? Who are you talking to? Do you know who you are talking to? Show some respect." Don't be fooled by how unruly their divine king was. This was ultimately a family matter and a family member. It was unacceptable for an outsider to offend them. Tan Tan was furious. He turned around and shouted, "How can you speak like that? Who are you talking to? Do you know who you are talking to?" As he spoke, he was about to give him a slap. Why do we need an outsider like you to intervene in our matters? How can you be so blind? How we speak is our business. Even if we scold each other, what can you do about it? No matter what your original intention is, you can't interrupt us for no reason. Endless saliva sprayed all over this elder's face. That elder was tongue-tied at once, but he was completely at a loss. He didn't know where he had offended the Divine King again. Wasn't he speaking up for the Divine King? Sitting right beside him, Gu Igu's expression didn't change. With a crooked corner of his lips, he sent a telepathic message in a low voice. "Idiot, this is that senior brother that our Divine King often talks about. In other words, he is Divine King Chu. You idiot, why don't you shut up? Just listen with your ears. If you dare to make another sound, be careful that the Divine King will slap your face." Holy King Chu. The elder of the Yu clan suddenly realized and shut his mouth tightly. It was not that they did not know that this was the legendary Holy King Chu. If they knew, would they dare to interrupt? "Ahem, senior brother, please be magnanimous and listen to my explanation. Actually, we didn't come late. We came quite early." Tan Tan rubbed his nose and said, "We did come, but we deliberately waited for a while. Perhaps we would have waited a little longer if senior brother hadn't come forward to confront that old man Xiao." Chu Yang frowned and sighed deeply. He naturally understood the meaning behind Tan Tan's words. After all, how could he not feel the affection his brother had for him? If he hadn't come forward to stop them, the 3-Star Divine Clan would have had every reason to watch as the Li clan was wiped out. Then, they would have come to pluck the fruits of their labor. At that time, they would have directly taken over the entire Li clan's territory. That outcome would have been the most ideal for the 3-Star Divine Clan. To be honest, Chu Yang also agreed that other than a very limited number of people in the Li clan, the rest of the people were really fucking not worth saving. However, it was those limited number of people that made Chu Yang feel a deep sense of pity. In particular, the founder of the Li clan, Li Chuanhua, made Chu Yang feel a kind of respect from the bottom of his heart. In the ancestral land of the great clans, he really didn't know if there would be a second person who could give him such a feeling. It was really a pity that such a person had died just like that. Secondly, there was the situation of the 3-Star Divine Clan itself. Right now, the 3-Star Divine Clan urgently needed a foothold. If the Li clan still had its strength, even if it was only a small part of it, it would still be impossible for the 3-Star Divine Clan to gain a foothold in this land. In that case, there would definitely be a battle between the two sides. The one who would lose would certainly be the Li clan, but there would be no possibility of a peaceful ending. When that time really came, the fate of the women and children of the Li clan was destined to be annihilated. I understand what you mean. It's just a pity that a hero like Li Chuanhua has died. It's really a pity. Chu Yang sighed, somewhat disappointed. How could I not understand that? Tan Tan became solemn, which was rare of him. Therefore, I won't make things difficult for his grandchildren. Also, we will maintain a cooperative attitude toward them. We won't treat them as servants or slaves. To be honest, there are also benefits to keeping them around. After all, there are some necessary survival skills on this continent that we also need to learn from them. If there are any of their grandchildren who are successful, we will also do our best to nurture them. Previously, I had promised that the Li clan would retain its independent status. This will never change. Tan Tan said, "Take this as my way of expressing my apology to the hero Li Chuanbua." He sneered. Although the rest of the people in the Li clan aren't worthy of me doing this at all. Mo Tianji said, "This outcome is already very good. It will definitely exceed the expectations of most people." These words of his were directed at Chu Yang. Chu Yang nodded. For Tan Tan to do this, it could indeed be said that he had already done all he could. After all, Tan Tan didn't have any friendship with Li Chuanbua. There was really no need for him to show him any affection. At the end of the day, for him to be able to do all this, it was all because of Chu Yang's appearance. No matter what Tan Tan did, no matter what method he used, the final result would still be that he would be able to smoothly take over the Northwest. To be able to do this, to the Li clan, this was already an additional benefit. As for saying that this move would exceed the expectations of most people, it wasn't only referring to the Li clan. It also included the other clans and the law enforcement officers. In their minds, with the 3-star Divine clan taking over the Northwest, even if the Li clan still existed, they would have to completely depend on the 3-star Divine clan for their survival. It was also reasonable for them to be reduced to servants or even slaves. To all of you, this battle of the Northwest has already become a thing of the past. However, the key is, what are all of you preparing to do next? After Wu Jueqing finished speaking, he didn't wait for Chu Yang and Mo Tianji to reply. Instead, he took Chu Lu with him and left. Whether the master and disciple went to admire the snowy scenery or to impart their experiences, they ultimately left this place for the time being. What Wu Jueqing wanted to do was to use his identity as a senior to pull the topic back to the right track. After all, at the end of the day, everyone more or less felt a little guilty about the battle of the Li clan. If the Li clan continued to be shameless and despicable, then so be it. If everyone used them. If they died, then so be it. But the problem was that the dead Li Chuanbua was so respected. This gave rise to the question of guilt. This was the tragedy of heroes. They couldn't ignore their own conscience. Only by having a clear conscience could they stand proudly in the world. Whether it was Chu Yang or Mo Tianji, they would more or less have an additional worry about the Li clan. This was something that couldn't be fixed. It could be said to be a dead knot. If this issue continued to be entangled and debated, everyone would be unhappy. Therefore, Wu Jueqing stepped forward and forcefully turned the situation around. As for whether these little fellows would appreciate it or not, it wasn't something that Wu Jueqing had to consider. He didn't care either. It had to be said that having an elder in the family was like having a treasure. It was too useful. Wu Jueqing's words cut off everyone's debate about the Li clan's arrangements. Everyone understood and didn't mention this matter again. As for the Li clan's arrangements, it became Tan Tan's matter alone or the 3 stars Divine clan's matter. In any case, it had nothing to do with tribulation anymore. What happens next? Chu Yang thought about it carefully and said, "Tan Tan, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave for the time being, right? This is the first time in these 10,000 years that the 3 stars Divine clan has walked out of a dangerous place. The clan is huge. You can't not watch over it personally." Tan Tan scratched his head and said, "Wouldn't I be bored to death then? Why don't I hand over full authority here to Gu Yigu and then we brothers go out and explore the martial world? How does that sound?" Gu Yigu's face contorted at once. "Without you around, who can pacify those old fellows in the clan? Although those old fellows' cultivation isn't as good as mine, all of them take advantage of their seniority. Other than Saint Kings, they won't submit to anyone. Dealing with those old fellows isn't a problem that can be solved just by having a bigger fist." Chu Yang, who could keenly tell that Gu Yigu was in a difficult spot, smiled and said, "We brothers have a long future ahead of us. Once anything goes wrong with the migration of millions of people in your clan, it will be an earth-shattering matter. This is something that concerns the inheritance of future generations. It can't be done without you around. Extremely displeased, Tan Tan bared his teeth and said helplessly, "All right then. After I settle down here, I'll go and look for you. We brothers spend less time together than we do apart. We've just met and we're going to break up again. What the fuck is this?" Don't forget. From a certain perspective, the Li clan here is the foundation for the 3 Stars Divine clan to establish a foothold in the world. You mustn't be careless. It's only convenient for yourself if it's convenient for others, Chu Yang reminded. Got it. Tan Tan was rather impatient. Why are you even more sissy than a girl now? Mother-in-law is so fucking annoying. Gu Igu and the other 2 elders exchanged a look, seemingly deep in thought. Initially, they hadn't thought much of the Li clan either. However, Chu Yang's words about establishing a foothold in the world had reminded them heavily. The 3 Stars Divine clan hadn't appeared in the last 100,000 years. They were already very unfamiliar with this land a long time ago. Since they wanted to establish a foothold here, survive, reproduce and pass down their legacy, then they would have to interact with the locals and build good relations with them. Trade, human relations, customs and so on. All of these required assistance and guidance from others. Yet the people of the Divine clan were completely clueless about all these. It looked like they really had no choice but to rely heavily on the Li clan. No matter what, they were still a local tyrant who had lived here for over 10,000 years. Chu Yang's words had already revealed the current location of the Li clan. When he saw the expressions of Gu Igu and the others, he knew that his words had been acknowledged. He heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. Li Chunbua, this is all I can do. How far your descendants will develop will have to depend on their own efforts from now on. Relying on the help of outsiders will only give them temporary peace. Happy face, it's the 4th update. Please vote for me. I'll continue to write the 5th update. Chapter 2056. Then it's the next step for us. Chu Yang patted his thigh lightly and said, "We've already exposed our identities in the War of the Northwest. It can be imagined that the big clans will definitely see us as thorns and want to get rid of us. From now on, I'm afraid that every step we take will be filled with thorns. It will be even more difficult to achieve anything. So, everyone must be careful. Also, everyone must continue to improve their strength to deal with unexpected situations." Emotianji and the others nodded heavily to express their agreement. Since we've already exposed our identities, we might as well not keep a low profile anymore. Let loose completely and turn the world upside down. Emotianji's words made everyone feel as if their blood was surging. However, Emotianji had actually been pondering over these words as he slowly said them word by word. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Chu Yang nodded approvingly. Our next step is to rush out from the northwest. Rush back to the southeast, then rush out from the southeast and rush into the Heavenly Pinnacle Grand Assembly. Turn the world upside down. The legend of the tribulation has been around for a long time. In our generation, we naturally have to write a new chapter of this legend. Good. Dong Wushang and Gu Du Xing were the first to respond. Then Rui Butong and Luo Kudi, the 2 fellows who only wished for the world to be in chaos, raised their hands and feet in agreement. Hey cough cough cough. Wait. A discordant voice suddenly sounded from the side. Who was so annoying to pour cold water on everyone at this time? Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. It was the handsome Duke Yu who deserved a beating. Duke Yu, what unique opinion do you have? Chu Yang clearly knew why Duke Yu was looking for him, but he pretended not to know. This was the way things were. Rushing to the top was more comfortable and cheaper than buying from the top. Cough, I'm not trying to pour cold water on everyone. I just think that increasing our strength is the most urgent problem right now. After all, only with profound strength will we have more capital. Duke Yu coughed and said very calmly, and now, I just happen to know a place that can greatly increase everyone's strength. Yes, I can guarantee that as long as we get there, our cultivation can double or even more in one night. Duke Yu could be considered to have put in a lot of effort. For the sake of the great cause of his race, he didn't hesitate to speak without thinking. He bragged as much as he could. However, what he said, combined with the actual situation of the Calamity Sword, was completely reasonable. It was very likely that it would appear. But the problem was that Duke Yu didn't even know where the 8th fragment of the Calamity Sword was. So, he was just spouting nonsense. When they heard that their strength could actually double overnight, or even more, the eyes of Rui Badong and the rest all lit up, eager to give it a try. How could there be such a miraculous effect? I'm looking forward to it. Motherfucker, it seems that I can't go. Tan Tan said. That's right. Tell me, what kind of place are you talking about? Luo Kadi asked. Is this true? Why do I feel like you're just bragging? Rui Badong said. This guy has always been unreliable. We'd be lost if we listened to him. I don't believe him at all. Dong Wushang said. Hee. The one who was sneering was Gu Duxing. Not only did he not believe it, he directly ignored it. You really know such a place? The one who expressed his doubt was Mo Tianji. Of course, Mo Tianji's doubt was referring to the location of the 8th fragment of the Calamity Sword. Only there could allow the brothers to double their cultivation. Other than that, there might not be any other similar shortcuts. Mo Tianji didn't believe that Duke Yu would know the location of the 8th fragment of the Calamity Sword that no one else knew about. That was a place that even the great sword master Chu couldn't find. I think it's fine as long as we have enough strength. What's important now is experience and temperament. If we don't have enough temperament, we won't be able to handle it if we have too much strength. Chu Yang snorted. Little guy, do you think I'll be led by the nose by you? You can't tell the difference between master and servant. What a joke, a huge joke. Even if I want to go, I have to pretend that I don't want to go. You have to beg me, then I'll reluctantly agree. This is what it means to be a prostitute but still want to have a chastity. Pretending to be a virgin but still acting so prim and proper. You've obviously been looking forward to it for a long time, but you're still so stubborn. What Big Brother Chu said makes sense. Everyone's strength has just increased, especially Rui Badong. Most of our strength comes from external forces. It's only right that we have to train and stabilize it. Mo Tianji could be said to be a roundworm in Chu Yang's stomach. He immediately agreed with Chu Yang's words perfectly. This is what it means to be in cahoots. Gu Duxing rolled his eyes as if he had understood something. He said, I think what Big Brother and Tianji said makes a lot of sense. I was wondering why I've been acting a little strange recently. No matter how much Rui Badong and Luo Kadi wanted to improve, they could only nod repeatedly. Both of them were wondering why their brothers who had always been so passionate about strength suddenly became so indifferent. What was there to be afraid of if they lacked temperament? They couldn't find a place to improve their cultivation quickly. Duke Yu's face became a little ugly. He said with a twisted face, What do you mean? There's such a good place. I'm taking you there out of goodwill, but you don't want to go? Is there something wrong with your brains? Or is there something wrong with all of you? Tan Tan rolled his eyes and suddenly said, Old Duke Yu, it's okay. Don't be so discouraged. It's okay if they don't want to go. Don't you still have me? Where do you want to go? I'll go with you. I'll accompany you. Is that okay? At most, I'll put aside everything here. Taking care of a friend's mood is a big deal. These words made it seem as if going to the Holy Land for cultivation was something that no one was willing to pay attention to no matter how much Duke Yu begged. Duke Yu flew into a rage. You want to go? What's the use of you going? It's useless. Tisk tisk. Chu Yang chuckled. Brother Yu, you're wrong, right? Why do I have to go if it's useful? Duke Yu didn't intend to hide anything. He said angrily, You still have the nerve to say that. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you have the Holy Spirit Spring? You only gave me a little bit. That's the holy object of our elf race. I originally thought that there was no hope of reviving my race. That's why I married Alu. After that, I completely gave up. I even decided not to come to the upper 3 heavens again. But you took out the holy object of the elf race. That's why I came all the way here. What? Are you thinking of going back on your words now? Chu Yang obviously knew that Duke Yu's goal was the Holy Spirit Spring in his hands. But wasn't his goal also the Tree of Life in Duke Yu's hands? But this trump card also had a request. How could Chu Yang directly say it out loud? If he let Duke Yu know about his trump card, he really didn't know what this guy would do with his tyrannical nature. Even if he forced Chu Yang to work, or waited for a good price to be sold, or even threatened and blackmailed, these were all Duke Yu's specialties in the upper three heavens. But now, everything seemed to be reversed. The situation was like this. Everything was easy to talk about. He was the fish on the chopping block. What else was there to talk about? This situation was simply too ideal. Brother Duke Yu, you're wrong. Chu Yang raised a finger. He said calmly, first, the elf race has already disappeared for 100,000 years. It seems to be even older than the 3 Stars Divine Clan. So, let's not talk about this issue for the time being. Duke Yu opened his mouth and was about to speak. But Chu Yang waved his hand to stop him. Second, I don't have the Holy Spirit spring of the elf race in my hands. The source of life of the elf race is the spring of life, the eternal ancient tree, and the heavenly crystal moonlight. Chu Yang said lightly, I do have the spring water in my hands. But it's only the Holy Spirit spring, and not the spring of life. The difference is like the distance between heaven and earth. It's far from being comparable. Duke Yu said angrily, what do you mean by far from being comparable? The Holy Spirit spring is just 1 step away from the spring of life. Chu Yang said comfortably, isn't it just 1 step away from the spring of life? Don't tell me you don't understand the logic of a difference of 1,000 miles? Duke Yu was tongue-tied. Besides, what did you say? 1 step away? Chu Yang said in surprise, the Holy Spirit spring is 1 step away from the spring of life? There's actually such a thing? Why don't I know about it? Also, how can I go 1 step further? This is a very nerve-wracking question. Chu Yang's surprised expression was really too fake. It was so fake that it couldn't even deceive a baby. Yet he still pretended to ask seriously. Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei, who were around, finally couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ri Badong and Luo Cudi winked at each other, their faces full of satisfaction. Gu Duxing coughed and looked up at the sky. He forced himself to maintain a serious and sharp expression. Mo Tianji was gentle and elegant. His smile was very friendly. Only Tan Tan felt that his senior brother's surprised expression this time was very handsome. So, he took out a mirror from his bosom and imitated it. Tan Tan fiercely opened his eyes and opened his mouth to make a surprised expression. Then he used this as a contrast. He sighed and put the mirror aside. Sigh, I can't learn it no matter how hard I try. Talent, this thing like talent can't be learned. Duke Yu was infuriated. He gritted his teeth in hatred. Then he sighed and said in a speechless manner, Chu Yang, I beg you. You have to be more professional in your acting. At least you have to let me know. You don't know? You can't be an idol forever. You should at least have some acting skills, right? Chu Yang squinted and said, actually, I've never cared about this matter. Although the spring of life and the Holy Spirit spring are 1 level apart, I'm not a fairy. The spring of life won't be of much use to me. Having the Holy Spirit spring to replenish my life force is already enough. Brother Duke Yu, please don't blame me. I really didn't take it to heart. So, acting skills are really meaningless. I solemnly declare that I will always be an idol. If I believe you, I'm not a fairy. Duke Yu said bitterly, I'm a beast. Moreover, it's a pig. In the monthly votes battle, I want to dominate the world and break into the top 10. Chapter 2057. Duke Yu was stunned. He gritted his teeth and said, can't you just let me be happy for a while before you talk? Will you die if you shut up for a while? The brothers laughed. The more unrestrained they were in their conversation, the closer their friendship would be. How could they see their true feelings if they kept everything hidden? At the same time, the group of people used their best movement techniques and rushed out like arrows leaving the bow. At such a close distance, no matter what kind of mount it would not be faster than a supreme martial artist flying at full speed. In just a few minutes, The group had already arrived at the top of the mountain and looked down at the boundless forest in front of them. Below them, there was a huge forest filled with rich greenery. It stretched for thousands of miles and they really couldn't see the end of it. The greenery of the forest rose and fell with the wind like the waves of the sea. Looking at this beautiful and spectacular scene, the brothers were all dazzled. "It's really beautiful," Chu Yang praised sincerely. "This scenery is really the heaven's equal holy realm. If I can travel here for the rest of my life, I wouldn't exchange it even if I became a deity." Duke Yu thought for a while and said with a smile, "What's so difficult about this? If Brother Chu ever gets tired of the martial world, you can come and settle down here anytime. No matter when, for generations to come, I will always reserve a place for Brother Chu here." Chu Yang laughed. "How can I not follow Brother Duke Yu's good intentions? Thank you very much, Brother Duke Yu. Please remember to reserve a place with good scenery for me." The two of them looked at each other and laughed in unison. However, both of them knew that Chu Yang's words were already the final conclusion. In the heavenly continent, their friendship would last forever. Outside the heavenly continent, only Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, and the others would go together. Duke Yu had already completely let go. Perhaps there was still a lot of guilt in his heart, but up until today, Chu Yang had completely erased it. Or rather, during this period of time, their friendship had become deeper and deeper. There was no need for both sides to feel guilty anymore. However, Chu Yang didn't know and Duke Yu didn't know that because of this sentence today, the most beautiful place in the city of elves had lost its owner for a long time. It had become the most forbidden place in the city of elves. Any expert, celebrity, clan master or leader who came to the city of elves would have no chance to enter that most beautiful place. Even the experts of the heavenly imperial court couldn't enter, just for the promise of reserving a place for himself today. "You may leave." Chu Yang smiled in a relaxed manner. "Hold on." Mo Tianji took a deep breath. His complexion turned solemn as he looked at the forest below the mountain. Then, he said in an exceptionally solemn tone, "Something is wrong. This seems a little strange." "Strange?" Chu Yang and Duke Yu frowned as they heard this. All the brothers concentrated their gazes and looked over. Just now, everyone's attention was not on observing the situation, so they did not pay too much attention to it. Now that they focused on observing, they could faintly feel that there was something wrong with this forest. It was really a little strange. The forest was still the same forest, full of greenery, full of vitality, and full of the aura of life. However, in this great atmosphere, there was a hidden sense of danger. Although it was hidden very well, it felt very real. It was as if there was a ferocious beast hidden inside. It was about to devour someone. Moreover, it was a peerless beast that could devour anyone. This feeling actually seems a little familiar. Ao Xie Yun frowned and said, "It's an exceptionally terrifying pressure. It seems that even the heart can't beat normally under this pressure." "Oh yes, this feeling is exactly what I felt when the black aura descended that day. It's just that it's a lot fainter now, as if it's completely hidden. However, the feeling is indeed there." "It's that feeling." When Ao Xie Yun mentioned it, all the brothers immediately reacted and expressed their agreement. Not only is it completely hidden, but it's also deliberately concealing itself. However, a heavenly demon is a heavenly demon. No matter how much it conceals itself, it will still be detected. Chu Yang's gaze was solemn. The conclusion is that the heavenly demon is actually here. Mo Tianji forced a smile and said, "Brother Yu, if our estimation is correct, then your lair is likely to be occupied by the enemy at this moment. And this enemy is someone with terrifying strength that we can't contend against right now." Duke Yu gritted his teeth and said, "Heavenly demon? It's actually him? Why would he be here?" "It's really too coincidental. It's so coincidental that it's frightening." Chu Yang took a deep breath and his gaze was deep. After the heavenly demon massacred the Shi clan, his whereabouts were unknown. No one in the entire Jianghu knows of his whereabouts. However, although it's unexpected that he's here, it's not unreasonable. This is because from the Shi clan to the south, one has to pass through this dense forest. Such a vast and dense place is undoubtedly the best place to hide. Duke Yu instantly felt his teeth ache and said angrily, "What the fuck is this? We finally got a chance to restore our clan's glory, but it's actually taken by that heavenly demon? This is really outrageous." Everyone was speechless. If this was the case, Duke Yu was really unlucky. Chu Yang pondered and said, "Don't be too depressed. This enemy may not be undefeatable." Duke Yu turned his head. "Oh." Judging from the situation of the heavenly demon's descent, he's indeed an enemy that we can't defeat at our current stage. However, when he was dealing with the Shi clan, he inadvertently revealed his true strength. A low-grade supreme martial artist was able to escape from his hands. What does this mean? This means that this heavenly demon's descent is not only severely injured, but his injuries are also far from fully recovered. His strength is also far from his peak state. Now that he's annihilated the Shi clan, I believe that his strength must have been depleted. Therefore, he stopped here and hid in such a secluded place to recuperate. If not for this, the heavenly demon wouldn't be so peaceful in this world. Also, another important reason why I'm able to deduce that his injuries have not fully recovered and are even showing signs of worsening is that he's obviously deliberately concealing all his aura so that no one can detect him hiding here. However, we still managed to detect him. This result means that this heavenly demon has a problem controlling his strength. Therefore, his injuries are definitely very serious and his strength must be greatly reduced. If this is the case, the heavenly demon is very likely to be at his weakest state now. Otherwise, with his strength, he could run rampant in the world. Who would he need to be afraid of in this world? Why would he need to hide his whereabouts like this? Even if he deliberately hides his whereabouts, he can't hide it well. Based on this deduction, although we don't have absolute confidence in getting rid of the heavenly demon or killing him, the risk may not be too big if we take a risk now, Chu Yang said calmly. Chu Yang insipidly said, "This risk is worth a try. If it succeeds, we'll help brother you take back this forest. And we'll eliminate the hidden dangers of this calamity. But if it doesn't succeed, we'll still be able to escape unscathed." Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and sneered, "But no matter what, we can't be afraid before the battle, right?" All the brothers roared in agreement, saying yes, in unison. Mo Tianji's expression did not change, but he sighed in his heart. As a wise and far-sighted person, how could he not have thought of this? Previously, he had already said that he could not fight against the heavenly demon because he wanted to avoid this place first. It was not that he was afraid of the heavenly demon, but he still could not bear to give up the great temptation of the fairy race and the tribulation sword master. He wanted to make a final attempt. It would be best if everyone left this dangerous place temporarily and continued to wander the Jianghu together. At that time, Elder Yu would naturally leave with the brothers. At the very least, he could use all his strength to look for elixirs in the following period of time. Then he could let Elder Yu do everything he could to make more preparations for the brothers' bloody battle in the Jianghu. As long as Elder Yu was among the brothers, Mo Tianji had countless methods to make these things happen. But this time, Chu Yang very clearly refuted his plan. He completely nipped his plan in the bud. He did not want to force Elder Yu at all. Furthermore, this also contained a warning from Chu Yang to Mo Tianji. Perhaps the others did not hear it, but Chu Yang knew that Mo Tianji understood. "Brothers, this time, we may face the heavenly demon for the first time in our lives." Chu Yang's expression was serious. "It may also be the most dangerous battle since we started our cultivation. Everything must be done with survival as the prerequisite. If anything goes wrong, we must leave immediately." Chu Yang said deeply. "Tianji, you will plan the layout. Don't ask for victory, just safety. Ensure everyone's safety is the first priority." Then, Chu Yang appointed the person to make the strategic plan. When faced with a specific goal and a specific plan, there was definitely no one more suitable than Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji did not decline. He only pondered for a while and made a decision. "Wait a while. We will search first. After all, we do not know the exact location of the heavenly demon. So, we must be careful. Everyone, Form a four-sided team. Do not scatter. Once you discover something, immediately rush forward in a cone shape. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing will take one side. Elder Yu will take one side. Dong Wushang and Ao Xieyun will take one side. Rui Butong, Yu and Xie Danqiong will take one side. GMO, Kadi, Qing Wu, Lei Er, and I will coordinate and support any side at any time. Remember, once you discover something, you don't need to speak or breathe. The only thing you need to do is to close your eyes and unleash your most powerful attack with all your cultivation to inform us. We will naturally surround and protect you from behind at the first possible moment. Then we will replace your sharp position. Just one attack. Remember, hold your breath and don't open your eyes. Attack with all your strength. Mo Tianji said seriously, legend has it that the heavenly demon is the best at illusions. As long as you protect yourself and block your senses when you attack, you will be safe. After we meet up, we will have even less to worry about. Even if the heavenly demon is still very strong, it is not undefeatable. As long as we are not afraid of the enemy, everything will be fine. Chapter 2058. Yes, if it was originally a green halo, it would at most be lush and green. But at this moment, it was already a green radiance. It was a true radiance that had almost condensed into a substance. The surrounding flowers and plants instantly grew and withered. They fell and planted on the ground. Then they sprouted and grew, taking root and spreading. Over and over again, they corroded the space between them. The withered land that was 100 feet wide had now slowly become 30 feet wide. And this space was still shrinking. The slow, complicated, and boring process was repeating over and over again. Chu Yang had already used up the third incomplete heavy pill. The withered land under the two people's feet was slowly shrinking. The surrounding trees had already become one whole tree. The inside was even slowly squeezing towards the space between them. The entire area of 130 feet had become an empty giant tree. And this was absolutely impossible to see from the outside, because there were hundreds of thousands and millions of branches intertwined together. They were so densely packed that it would make one's scalp tingle. In this empty space, the life energy was so dense that it almost made one feel that one could live forever just by breathing in it. There were only two people here. Only two people. On the ground, the land that seemed to have withered for eternity was now moist and full of greenery. The surroundings were completely covered by the dense grass. At this point, the two people could tell that this piece of land had already been revived. But there was still a small dried-up space that was about the size of a teacup left. Phew, Duke Yu heaved a long sigh of relief. Finally, he said, "It's almost done." At this moment, Chu Yang was standing in the dense grass that had already overgrown him. He looked a bit embarrassed. There were even a few pieces of green grass that had gotten into his nostrils. A certain king of hell hurriedly pulled the grass out of his nostrils. He praised, "The special ability of the elf race is really heaven-defying. This method is really not something that a human can do." Duke Yu smiled bitterly. "It is indeed not something that a human can do, because this method is activated by the elf race's life energy source." Chu Yang laughed and said, "What do we do now?" "It's very simple. You just need to pour the spring of life here." Duke Yu said, "Don't think that there's no protection here, but the life force of the spring of life definitely won't leak out. Also, I've already used the power of the fairies to construct a transmission channel. If you go down from here, there won't be any buffer and you'll be able to reach the mouth of the spring of life. As long as there's enough spring of life. Chu Yang, if you feel that this is impossible, there's no need to force yourself. The spring of life is very important to you guys in the future." "I know." Chu Yang grunted and took 2 steps forward. He came to the top of the teacup-sized entrance. Then he stretched out his hand and squatted down in a horse stance. "Stop. You better stop right there." Duke Yu's face was filled with black lines as he angrily said, "This is the spring of life that's being irrigated. Please don't make such a smelly posture, it's as if you're going to the toilet." Chu Yang, who was squatting in a horse stance, was stunned. Then, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Big brother, you have to know that I can only use this posture to continuously transfer the spring of life from inside and then pour it down through my fingers. Other than that, I can only take it out bit by bit. There will definitely be a break in between. Only I can maintain this posture to ensure that the spring of life is endless. Can you not make blind guesses? Duke Yu was stunned and said, "What blind guesses? You don't even know what you're doing right now. Forget it, just maintain this posture and don't move." After saying that, he quickly turned around and raised his hand to dig out a big piece of the big tree behind him. He adjusted it according to Chu Yang's current posture. Then he used his hand to make a wooden block and stuffed it under Chu Yang's butt. He said with a black face, "Will it affect you if you sit in this posture?" "All right." Chu Yang was speechless. What was this? Just now, he was still in a horse stance. What about now? Wasn't it more like sitting in that position? Duke Yu anxiously waited in anticipation. Then he saw Minister Chu let out a sound again. His finger pointed out with a schwa sound. His fingertips stopped 3 inches above this teacup-sized piece of land. Then, a stream of clear spring water gushed out from his fingertip and poured into this opening. Then, it disappeared without a trace. As the clear spring water flowed out continuously, the moment it left Chu Yang's fingertip, each drop of water emitted a bright and colorful light. It was like the Milky Way flowing in the night sky. It brought with it a boundless and dreamy nobility as it disappeared into the entrance of the spring of life. Time passed bit by bit. Chu Yang continued to pour out the spring of life. His expression was calm. Duke Yu's face was filled with longing and apprehension. His eyes didn't blink as he watched the spring of life slowly pour into the entrance. At this moment, Duke Yu hoped that Chu Yang could continue to pour out the spring of life continuously until the spring of elves had truly awakened. However, he was also afraid that Chu Yang would use up too much of the spring of life and plant a negative factor in the future. In the tribulation space, compared to Chu Yang's calmness, a certain sword spirit's face was filled with pain. Seeing the spring of life being continuously extracted, even though he knew that it wouldn't harm his foundation, he still felt a heartache. Is it done? Is it still not enough? Why is it still not enough? How much is this? Isn't it too much? It should be enough. The sword spirit kept nagging like a neurotic. His heart ached so much that it couldn't be any more painful. Ever since the tribulation space had the spring of life, it had never given out so much at once. This was too much. The sword spirit felt that no matter who it was, even if it was Shui Leihun, the original lord, it wasn't worth it to give out so much spring of life. Moreover, the amount being poured out now didn't seem to be enough. It was very likely that it was far from enough. Save me. As the spring of life continued to be poured in, the entrance that was the size of a teacup's mouth gradually became brighter and brighter. Little bits of fluorescent light floated out continuously and dissipated everywhere. The fluorescent light of life became more and more numerous, more and more brilliant. Gradually, it seemed to have condensed into a substance. Duke Yu's breathing also became more and more rapid. His 2 eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. His 2 hands were tightly clenched into fists, his palms full of sweat. Finally, soon. Duke Yu muttered to himself like a neurotic. Big brother, is it really soon? I've already given out about 7,000 caddies of spring of life now. Is it really soon? Chu Yang rolled his eyes. It's really soon. Continue. Duke Yu didn't hear what Chu Yang was saying at all. He was so excited that he had already thrown his original intention of using the spring of life sparingly to the winds. If a certain king of hell dared to cut off the output now, Duke Yu would probably go all out without another word. He would drag Chu Yang by the neck and force him to continue. Cough sigh. Chu Yang's face was full of pain. Oh my God! So much spring of life, when exactly will I be able to make up for it? Duke Yu's soul had completely left his body. He didn't speak to Chu Yang at all. He only looked at the teacup-sized entrance and muttered to himself, "It's getting thicker. Almost done. Quick, 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 quick." Chu Yang was completely speechless. It had already been a day and a night. Brother, can't you just say something to let me rest? Even if you can't really rest, you should at least say something. You're so tired and silly, aren't you? Sigh, I've met the wrong person. Shaking his head, a certain king of hell could only continue working. Finally, along with a strange sound, an unknown sound gradually sounded. It seemed to be coming from somewhere underground. This sound seemed to be coming from someone who had eaten his fill and was letting out a series of extremely satisfied burps. Then, the teacup-sized entrance suddenly sank slowly. After sinking for a full 5 feet, it finally stopped moving. Then, a few strange stones suddenly appeared out of thin air. In the next moment, they had already turned into ordinary blue stones and completely sealed the teacup's entrance. This situation was extremely similar to a small well. In the next moment, as the spring of life was injected again, the sunken space began to slowly float up. Gurgle, 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 sounds could be heard. A light fragrance that refreshed one's heart and mind wafted up. Chu Yang greedily took a breath. Increase the input. Increase the input quickly increase it. Increase it to the maximum. Duke Yu shouted excitedly as he danced with joy. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Big brother, do you think I'll increase the input just because you say so? Damn it, do you think that this thing is free? This is the spring of life, not some dirt that can be seen everywhere. I originally thought that you were quite understanding. Why are you acting like this at the last moment? Chu Yang's trusted aide was cursing endlessly, but his hands abruptly doubled the input. Oh my god, what is this? My spring of life. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit's heart ached as he watched the water level of the spring of life gradually decrease. He was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He shouted loudly, "Let me out! Let me out! Give me a knife! I want to chop this elf to death with one chop! This shameless bandit! I want to chop him to death! Slice by slice, slice by slice, ah 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 ah!" At this moment, the sword spirit was completely driven mad in the tribulation space. Duke Yu was also driven mad outside. Now, Duke Yu's hands were dancing and his feet were dancing. He had completely lost track of what year it was. Le Duo that spanned 100,000 years, the elf race's biggest Le Duo had been realized. Duke Yu was already in a state of confusion. He couldn't even remember what to say. He just kept on saying, The small spring had already stopped bubbling with rainbow-colored light. Instead, with a schwa sound, a stream of sparkling spring water rushed out and rushed towards Chu Yang, who was sitting on the wooden stake. The spring of life. This phenomenon meant that the spring of life below had completely recovered. Moreover, the spring of life had an exceptionally special characteristic. It was the greatest life. Whoever gave me life, I would repay them tenfold. This was gratitude for life. Chu Yang had awakened the spring of life and restored it to full vitality. Therefore, the spring of life would rather do nothing to repay Chu Yang's kindness. This was the characteristic of the spring of life. Today's third update. Make up for the first chapter. I just came back and I'm still tired. It seems that I won't be able to write the fourth update today. However, I will continue to make up for it tomorrow. In other words, tomorrow's third update will still be above. It won't be considered explosive, and I won't need monthly votes. Chapter 2059. The origin of the heavenly demon that he cultivated was naturally his private property. All the heavenly demons agreed with this point of view. To the heavenly demon clan, this was a matter of course. Oh, I understand now. The Dharma Supreme smiled and said, "It is my honor to be able to do something for Senior." He cursed in his heart, "Damn you! How dare you extract my origin to heal my injuries? You idiot from outside the domain. All the women of your ancestors." Yes, this is how it should be. The few words of the heavenly demon almost caused the Dharma Supreme to have a cerebral hemorrhage. However, he did not show it on his face. Even the higher-level heavenly demons could not be compared to the human pseudo-emperor in terms of concealment of human nature. At the same time, another thought came to the Dharma Supreme's mind. He can extract my origin of the heavenly demon to strengthen himself? In that case, can I also extract his origin of the heavenly demon for my own use? It should be possible. If I can extract all the origin of the heavenly demon from this guy, then how much stronger will I be? The Dharma Supreme's mind went through all kinds of thoughts at lightning speed. The most important thing now is to need the spirits of some supreme martial artists and above to make up for our losses. When the heavenly demon said the word strong, there was obvious disdain. Since when did I, the great heavenly demon, have to address the so-called supreme martial artists here as experts? Strong? Are they worthy? They are just slightly stronger ants. Forcing himself to suppress his displeasure, he ordered, "Come here, I'll teach you how to absorb the power of divine souls. Go out and kill people, then absorb their divine souls for me to use, strengthen your strength, and heal my injuries." The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed and he said, "Okay. I will definitely kill them to your satisfaction. Killing a few people for senior is naturally not a problem, no matter how many I kill. I dare not say much about other things on this continent, but there are quite a lot of people." The heavenly demon smiled satisfactorily and said, "You are very obedient. As long as you are obedient, there will be many benefits. Yes, listen carefully." The heavenly demon did not suspect that the Dharma Supreme would have any strange thoughts. After all, he was the one who gave birth to the heavenly demon's origin. In the heavenly demon clan, this was a great favor. This was the heavenly demon's creed. No matter what he wanted him to do, it was only right and proper. The celestial fiend clan had been passing down their inheritance in this manner for millions of years, so there was really nothing to worry about. However, he did not realize that what he was facing now was not a true heavenly demon, but a heavenly layer human. Moreover, this human was a powerful figure who was used to ordering people around. Most importantly, this human was an ambitious and ruthless character who had betrayed them multiple times. Furthermore, he was a sane and intelligent person with almost demonic intelligence. After listening to the technique imparted by the heavenly demon, the Dharma Supreme pondered over it for a while and felt that something was amiss. He cautiously said, "Senior, you see, I'm very weak now. I'm afraid that I won't be able to kill a supreme martial artist for the time being. I'll have to make up for it before I can carry out the actual operation." What you said makes sense. Then I might as well teach you how to refine divine souls. First, kill a few people to replenish yourself. Even if your cultivation is not high, you can still recover some of your strength. After all, you can't compare with me. It's like pouring a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood for me, but it's very beneficial for you, the heavenly demon said proudly. Yes, the Dharma Supreme replied respectfully. He thought to himself, "Indeed, I can't compare with you now. However, when my wings are fully developed and I devour you, will I still not be able to compare with you? By then, you'll be nothing." How would the heavenly demon have thought that the Dharma Supreme had such rebellious thoughts in his mind? He carefully imparted the technique without reservation and warned, "Remember, if there's any divine soul of a supreme martial artist, send it to me immediately. You must not devour it yourself. At most, when I recover slightly, I'll reward you with 1 out of every 10. You don't have to be too grateful, I'm still very generous." The Dharma Supreme did not seem to mind at all. He smiled sincerely and said, "Senior's generosity makes me feel ashamed. Senior, you helped me activate the heavenly demon's origin. Such a great favor, I can't repay it in a few generations. I will definitely not keep it for myself." The heavenly demon waved his hand in satisfaction. It's hard for you to be so filial. My promise will always be valid." Go. The Dharma Supreme agreed and leaped out. In the next few days, the Dharma Supreme kept trying to worm his way into the heavenly demon's good books. The heavenly demon did not suspect him and actually taught him many heavenly demon's secret techniques. How would he know that every time he taught the Dharma Supreme something, he would be one step closer to death? He was actually sending himself to the gates of hell, inside the forest of fairies, at the core of the giant tree's embrace. Although the bubbling spring water was churning violently, it never really emerged from the ground and naturally did not drain away. Only the spring water inside became clearer and clearer. Starting from the third night, there was suddenly a bright and resplendent moonlight that gently shone on this place, covering the entire forest with a layer of sparkling and tiny light. The light gradually seeped into every tree and disappeared. However, the moonlight continued to shine, and an endless amount of mysterious energy poured into the forest without holding back. Chu Yang discovered that after about half a day, the spring water had become turbid. Well, it couldn't be said to be turbid. Instead, it had turned into the color of the moonlight. It was gradually settling down. Moreover, strings of rainbow-colored bubbles were also continuously emerging. Gurgle gurgle. This is the so-called celestial crystal moonlight. Now that the celestial crystal moonlight has appeared, it proves that the ancient tree of life has been revived. And the appearance of this spring water is the celestial crystal moonlight gathered in the entire forest, converting it into the special energy needed by the city of fairies and transmitting it to the city of fairies. As if seeing Chu Yang's confusion, Duke Yu explained calmly. "I see," Chu Yang exclaimed. "No wonder the fairy race was once so powerful. All the flowers and trees in such a huge forest were absorbing energy and converting it. How powerful was the energy?" What Chu Yang did not know was that with the revival of the ancient tree of life and the appearance of the celestial crystal moonlight, the periphery of this forest was also spreading outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye. Trees emerged from the periphery and slowly occupied pieces of land that did not belong to this forest. It seemed that at this speed, they would be able to occupy the entire continent. However, all of this was carried out silently. In just half a day, this originally vast forest had expanded by 1/10 of its original size. Moreover, this expansion was still ongoing, and it was still firmly continuing. If only one person could absorb all this energy. Looking at the celestial crystal moonlight constantly converting the energy, some of it even condensing into a substance, Chu Yang could not help but daydream endlessly. Don't have unrealistic and blind thoughts. Even if a deity were to rashly obtain this energy, he would also explode in an instant. Duke Yu looked at him disdainfully and turned his head away. He no longer looked at this bumpkin who had not seen the world. Chu Yang sweated profusely. Finally, this day had finally arrived. The spring water no longer bubbled and started to emit dense mist. The mist was very light at first, but it gradually became thicker and thicker. Finally, it was so thick that it was like a substance. Chu Yang took a breath and felt comfortable all over. This phenomenon lasted for a few hours. The thick mist gradually thinned and became clear again. Looking down from the spring's eye, one could not tell how deep the spring water was. It seemed to lead to the end of another world. When one's eyes looked into the calm spring water, they actually could not see their own reflection. Duke Yu took a deep breath and said with a dignified face, "Clean water without a shadow. Life force is transformed. Spring of life is formed. Tree of life is born. Moonlight is abundant. The passage to the elves has been opened. It's about time. We can all go in now." Chu Yang's spirit shook when he heard this. In fact, Duke Yu had been waiting impatiently for a long time. In these few days, he had been looking at this spring water without blinking. He was afraid that something unexpected would happen. Now that the passage had finally been opened, he naturally could not wait to call everyone in. His two hands were constantly making all kinds of mysterious hand signs in front of his chest. Circles of green light suddenly appeared and poured into the void above the spring water. Slowly, the shape of this void began to undergo some subtle changes. After a burst of distorted mist, a narrow passage that only one person could enter appeared out of thin air. This is really amazing. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. He did not seem to see Duke Yu expending much effort. Such a passage was opened just like that? So simple? What's with the nonsense? Let's hurry up and leave. Duke Yu hurriedly called out. Then, he flew into the passageway impatiently. Seeing this, Chu Yang did not dare to delay. He followed closely behind and jumped into the passage. This is the special ability of our elven race. You see, it seems to be effortless. In fact, it really is effortless. Duke Yu was very excited. It was obvious that he was trying to find something to say. His intention was naturally to hide the ecstasy and excitement that almost made his heart explode. I see. Chu Yang's voice sounded very dull in the passage. He said very gloomily. After the two of them entered, the passage that had suddenly appeared outside gradually disappeared. After a burst of distortion, it completely disappeared. The spring on the ground was also cleverly covered by a few stones. It was as if there were no traces of it at all. All of the refreshing vitality was also slowly scattering everywhere. It made this place look inconspicuous. After entering the passage, Chu Yang felt as if his body was falling endlessly. It was as if he would never fall to the bottom. An unprecedented feeling of weightlessness appeared clearly in his senses. It was like a nightmare. He only felt that his body was falling endlessly. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.